Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Hey, Miguel Irati, Lights Out Podcast is back. That's Mike Davis, the MMA detective over there, and that means we're ready for another deep dive. We have Chris Lytle, the big boss, offline right now with our guest, ready to bring him on. And Mike, what do we got? Who we got? What are we doing?
We got Erik Apple. We got a guy that's part of the California scene. You know, we're kind of globetrotted a little bit. Now we're back on the mainland here in the United States. He's a guy that's touched many different aspects of the mixed martial arts world, particularly on the West Coast. And we are going to do a deep dive with him, as well as explore the culture, the mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu culture from California.
Yeah, Erik, Erik's a guy with, I think he's got under 20 fights, but he's got a nice record. And I think that
very savvy on the mic. Yeah.
I think that besides the fighting, that he touched the sport in a bunch of different, like as a sponsor, as a announcer, as you mentioned, and like he's worn a lot of different hats, and he's been around a lot of people out in California. So we'll see. He's probably got some good stories. Good.
Absolutely. So guys, please like, share, subscribe. It's like kind of giving us a tip. We're not asking for money other than a like, share, subscribe, maybe a nice review for iTunes. So if you guys could do that, it really allows us to keep growing. YouTube algorithms are murdering us and they're not allowing us to grow. So the only way we can do that is with your help.
Without further ado, here come Chris and Erik.
What's happening, everybody? Thanks again. Once back, another fantastic episode, deep dive time. This is going to be a fun one, man. I got a gentleman I've been fortunate enough to get to know, actually got to do some commentary with. I want to do some more. We can't wait to work that out together. But this guy is so interesting. He's got like so many different careers on here. Fighting was definitely one. That's what we're going to go over some of his fight. But man, just so much good knowledge. And this guy's done everything. I kept thinking his life was almost fake when he kept talking about, like, you've been a race car driver too? I don't buy it. Come on, man. Show me some evidence. Erik Apple. Erik, how the hell you doing, brother?
I'm stoked to be with you guys. I've enjoyed some of the shows, and I'm honored and a little bit embarrassed that you guys want to do this with me, but I guess here we go.
Hey, man, you're super interesting, man. But one thing I want to always like to talk about, I just talked about a little bit. You've done so much in your life. But what got you from the beginning? What was your background like growing up? What sports did you play? How did you get into fighting?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a long story how I got into fighting. First of all, I grew up in South Orange County. I grew up in San Clemente, Dana Point. So South Orange County, basically where I grew up, every single kid could surf, could skateboard, could snowboard, could ride BMX. If you couldn't do those things, you were like weird. Like there was something wrong with you. Like every kid I grew up with was able to do all those things. Like that was a normal thing. Like you go ride even at 8, 10, 11 years old, you could go ride a skate ramp. You go surfing. Like everybody was able to do that growing up on the beach, right? And also, like, you know, a lot of the best, well, especially action sports, professional athletes, you know, a huge percentage of them come from the beach in California. Surfers, skateboarders, BMXers, snowboarders. So, like, we're surrounded by those kinds of athletes since childhood. I grew up on the beach. I grew up in the water. So that was completely natural to me. So the first sport I actually got paid to do was surfing and bodyboarding. So, I mean, I grew up in the water, and I was traveling from when I was 15 years old. I was traveling to Hawaii, to Tahiti, to mainland Mexico, and riding bigger and bigger waves and getting paid to do it.
Wow. Sounds horrible.
Well, I mean, now was it like, did anybody play normal sports? Baseball? I say normal, like football. Was that big, or basketball, anything, or just those sports?
Yeah. So just to give you like an idea, I mean, so where I'm from is it's a, you know, people have most, you know, it's funny. I mean, I know Chris joked about it, but not every kid was rich where I grew up, but it's considered a rich area. Yeah. So there's a lot of well-to-do, you know, famous people who live where I live. So, you know, rich, wealthy, famous people all having kids together. There's a lot of really good bat and ball sports athletes. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, Todd Marinovich, Rob Johnson. I could name tons of NFL players who went to my school. So,
Wow.
I mean, Scott Covington, who he played for University of Miami and then the Bengals as well. I mean, I played on the same team as a couple guys who went to the NFL. There was a lot of high level athletes who are from where I'm from in both action sports, combat sports, and bat and ball sports.
Okay. How did that parlay into fighting? When did that come into play?
So basically, it all comes down to Marco Ruas. So Marco Ruas moved to Laguna Niguel and probably around, I want to say 96, 97. I think he was teaching at Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu for a little bit, for a short period of time when he first came to the U.S. and pretty quickly made the move down to Orange County and moved to Laguna Niguel. So, I mean, everyone, obviously you guys are very familiar with Marco Ruas. So that it was literally my first introduction to any combat sports. I didn't wrestle. I didn't box. So I grew up in action sports, but I mean, to your point, I did play football. I mean, I was all CIF. I was all safe and as a strong safety. I was recruited by several Big Ten teams. I was recruited by University of Wisconsin. Barry Alvarez flew me out 3 different times to Camp Randall in Wisconsin. I went to a lot of schools. I basically cheated. I was a 6 foot tall, 180 pound safety in high school. So I was big enough. I should have been a linebacker, but I didn't want to be an average linebacker. So I said, how about I'm just the biggest safety there is? That sounds a lot more fun than being an average linebacker and getting run over by offensive tackles. So I did play football in school. And so, I mean, but I didn't have any, like I said, I didn't have any combat sports experience. And a lot of the kids I grew up with around Robert Emerson, the Ian McCalls and those kinds of guys were training at Marco's. And I was a kid who I definitely wasn't afraid of fighting. I didn't know anything about it, but I wasn't afraid of it. So I embraced it and showed up and, day one just started going at it. And it wasn't long. I'd say it was maybe 5-6 months before Marco was like, "Oh, you're now coming to fight class."
Real quick on a different note, did you ever seriously consider obviously you go out to Wisconsin 3 times. What made you not take a football scholarship?
I had a full knee reconstruction at 16 years old. So that really, that experience talked me out of it. It was no fun. I mean, my knees, I've had 5 knee surgeries now to this point on my right knee. I was actually told about a month ago that they're guessing 5-7 years I'll have all the replacement on my knee.
Well, just so you know, here in about 2 weeks, I'm having my 4th knee surgery. So I'm trying to catch up.
I'm feeling you.
So training over with Marco Ruas, did you go through the initiation process that a lot of the old school guys kind of put their people through?
So Marco, who by the way I still talk to, and I mean Marco is so awesome. There was no official initiation. That's just how it is. There's the daily experience in fight training would look like an initiation to somebody else. I mean, Marco, let me give you an example. Marco KO'd me twice in the same round once. He put me down, not sleepy time, but put me down, where I didn't know what was happening for a second. I got up, Babalu walked over.
That was your mistake.
My nose out. And I started walking off the mat. And Marco said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, good, go." And started coming at me again. And probably 60 seconds after that, he put me down again. And that was a regular thing. I think I told Chris this before. Marco didn't know any better. I mean, and other Brazilians, it's funny. When I would meet other Brazilians, they said, "Oh, you train?" I said, "Yeah." Where do you train? I'd say Marco Ruas. And their attitude would change immediately because he was known in Brazil as like a mean, scary, really scary guy. And I told Chris this, when I was first training there, on the days that we were sparring, if I knew Marco was sparring that day, I would literally be sitting in my car before I walk in, borderline in tears. Because remember, I'm a kid. I didn't box. I didn't wrestle. I went to his group class, for 6 months and was like, "Okay, you're going to come in with me and Shimu, Gustavo Machado, his nephew, Rodrigo Ruas, Pedro Rizzo, Antoine, and Babalu, and you're going to come with us now." Because I was a 195 pound, 23-year-old strong kid. So I'm a good body, right? I'm a good. Yeah. So I would sit in my truck with borderline in tears, trying to figure out, like, how can I talk myself out of this? Or how can I talk Marco? Or what kind of excuse can I come up with today to why I can't do this?
That won't make it worse the next day. You know, he's like mad at you for not showing up, so he takes it out on you.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I'm sure, Chris, I'm sure you've had this experience where you spar with certain people and you learn how to deal with them. It took me a long time to figure out with him, but I learned later on that if I was more aggressive, it wasn't as bad. And if I was cowering away from him, he would get frustrated and beat me up worse, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That sounds horrible.
If I not do anything, he would just get irritated and fucking put a great combo together and then whap me with it. But if I went at him, it was kind of better.
So you had mentioned a couple legendary names. So you've got Miguel. You're going to pull your microphone a little away from your mouth. It's kind of. You mentioned Babalu, and you mentioned Pedro Rizzo,
yep.
And obviously Marco. Who were any of those guys really nice in the gym? Because that's a hard room.
Pedro was the nicest, and I never actually spoke to him about it. But what I had put together, and I maybe talking to Babalu about it. I think that Marco brutalized the fuck out of Pedro as a kid. So he felt sorry for us going through the same thing. And as a matter of fact, Pedro would use he wore either 18 or 20 ounce gloves back then, which I didn't even know existed. He wore these giant gloves. So theoretically, it didn't hurt you as bad. But the problem is that they were bigger, so it was harder for him to miss your face, number one. Number two, he would also wear 2 sets of shin guards. He would wear the pretty common Fairtex leather ones. And under those, he would wear like the white soccer shin guards that kids wear. So he'd wear 2 sets. And honestly, he never gave me a beat down. Not like Babalu. Babalu would give me a beat down because we were so close that it was funny to him. And Shimu was just Shimu was just mean in general to everyone. But Pedro was rather gentle.
Pedro, we had Pedro on. He had said he was 16 years old. And in essence, Marco was like, no, just walk in with me. You're not old enough to be in here. You're not paying. You're coming with me. No, like parental permission. No, nothing in regards to like what a normal business owner would do.
Parental permission in Brazil?
Dude, he just recited a story about just Marco just proceeding to beat the dog shit out of him and was surprised to see him back the next day and then did it again.
Yeah, Marco, but it's funny, like in his mind, he's not doing anything weird. I'll give you an example. Like he would show techniques in the regular group class. So, some fighters, some not fighters. And he would be showing a technique and the person he'd be showing the technique would be like asleep. And we'd be like, Marco, he's out, like stop. And he's like, not even a thing to him.
He's just a product of being a very old school guy, and people just went hard back then, I think, and he probably goes harder than most of them. But I think, like you said, if that's in his head, what's normal, he's just being normal, and he's probably thinking he's helping you out by doing that to you.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he's a great coach. He's a really good coach. I mean, I don't know how many people are really aware of this, but the people from Pride, the people in Japan were sending their Japanese fighters out to Marco's camp for years and years and years to train him, to get him ready for any fight. Fujita came out for every single fight.
Really?
A lot of people came to us. Crow Cop came out before his first MMA fights to train with us. Peter Arts, like a lot of people from around the world would come to train just in our group class and our fight class to get ready for a fight. This is this is back in the early 2000s. And I'll tell you another example. Marco also, I remember a couple of times where he would be trying to get a submission and sometimes I would tap and he would look at me and go, no, it's not good enough. I can still go more. You can't. He would basically say, you're not allowed to tap yet.
We don't accept your tap.
There's some of those old school guys, like Coleman is another one. They are set in their ways and they'll never ask you to do something that they themselves wouldn't go through or do. But the things that they would go through and do are just so unreasonably bonkers that it's like, it's like, okay, I know you would do that, but 99% of the world wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with a young sport like this, in the beginning, the progression and the changes come, fast and furious. But like I said, one thing that was cool is we had a lot of Japanese fighters coming out. So Fujita came out for almost every single camp back in the day, which was definitely interesting because Marco would have us, the guys come, and he would basically be private with Marco, and Marco would bring one fighter in per day, or maybe me and one other guy in to do sparring with Fujita. And sparring with Fujita was, I mean, if you can imagine, like the guy never brought his hands above his nipples, and he literally like just put his head down every time he punched it. That was his defense. To the point where, like, I remember I'd be doing rounds of Fujita, just teeing off on him and looking at Marco like confused, like, what? I don't know what you want me to do. I've hit him 47 times the first 30 seconds of this round. How many? He's like, just keep going. I guess I don't know. And that's, I mean, Fujita's skull. That was his defense. That was no problem.
Did you notice that the Japanese, like the way that they did jujitsu was much different than what was taught here, like in the United States?
Yeah, I would say so. It's much more inspired by, I mean, it's not necessarily jiu-jitsu, it's much more inspired by catch wrestling. And another thing I'll mention is that, almost every, truly Japanese fighter I sparred with, from Lyoto Machida to Fujita, to what was the one who had the, was it Watanabe? Who was the one who had the judo gold medal, the heavyweight? He fought Crow Cop. And
I know who you're talking about. Wore the gi. I can't remember his name though.
Anyways, every major Japanese fighter I ever trained with, training, they do not spar hard at all. That's like not a thing for them. They're very, very, I mean, they're going 40% at worst.
Wow.
Eric, one thing I noticed, I remember, and then maybe this wasn't the case, I remember going over to Japan once, and I was still a young guy, so I'm trying to impress these guys, and like, here, roll with, I can't remember, it was like Yamada or something, and I was like, all right, yeah, my man. I was like, okay. So I go in there and I'm giving my A game. I'm wanting to impress all these guys. So I'm doing all my submissions. And I remember I'm submitting them a couple of times. I'm like, dude, this guy's like Neil Bloodshamp. I'm beating his ass, and I'm all proud of myself and, trying to get to come back. This is practicing. And so I do great. And then, about 6 months later, I get a fight and it's him. I was like, okay, and I went over there, and you know what? None of those moves worked. Like when I went with him, he wasn't trying. He was trying to learn what I did. And then I learned a lot there. I was like, okay, now I get it. Now he just fooled me. And I was like, okay, because they know they're going to fight everybody. They're just, he wasn't trying. He was trying to learn my moves. I was like, man, that's pretty smart. But those guys just fought the toughest all the time. So I think when they went out there, they weren't trying to beat you. They were trying to learn.
He was playing chess, Chris, and you were playing checkers.
I wasn't even playing checkers. I was something like tic-tac-toe or something. I don't know. But yeah, he got me. I learned from it.
If I just want to throw one more name out at you from the early 2000s that was a Ruas person, because Debbie Purcell was pretty ahead of her time for the ladies, and I doubt you guys took it easy on her. So I don't know if you remember her or can share a story.
So Debbie was she had already been training for quite a while when I got there. So she was much more experienced and had a lot more MMA knowledge, boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, submissions. Obviously, I'm a lot bigger and stronger than her. So when I first got there, I was a good person for her to spar with because I was somewhat inexperienced, even though I was bigger and stronger than her. I mean, obviously, I caught up and passed her up quick, but she was real tough. She's not really someone that you had to take it easy on that much, if that makes sense to you. Like, she's real tough. She was the toughest girl back then, for sure. She was as good as it got at that time, in my opinion.
Yeah, those leg kicks were Ruas leg kicks. She was ahead of her time for those days. I remember that. The only problem with her, to me, I think, is that she might, and I'm guessing because you never know with the ladies, but she might have been a little older, like, for the time, not at 21, 22.
She was already a little bit older when we got there. And, I'll mention this. I do remember Marco made us do a what's it called? A shark tank or whatever.
Shark Tank. Yeah.
Marco made us do a shark tank on her once before a fight and like give it to her. And I remember it was enough that even being used to what's going on there, I remember even that I was like, this is pretty extreme. Like he wanted us to give it to her. And Marco is a moody, he's a Latin guy. Marco got mad at different ones. It was at all times, and he would let you know. You would know you were in trouble, and he would literally just talk about beat the shit out of you and teach you a lesson. And he did that to Debbie once. He literally forced us to give her a beat down.
Wow.
We've tried to get him on here several times. I know he's not comfortable speaking English, but he won't do it.
He won't do it. No way. I know. I'm just knowing Marco. He doesn't even like this. Like, I'm one of the few like Americans he's like comfortable with, and that didn't happen for years.
Where does that come from, do you think?
He's just a very simple guy. He doesn't really. I mean, first of all, I don't think he wants to talk to many people in Portuguese either.
That's, you know what? You're probably
Dude
right.
just wants to be with his wife and his kids and his grandkids, and he doesn't really want to waste time talking to people. It's just not who he is. He's not. I mean, he's one of those guys. It's like he didn't fight to be cool or to be famous. Like he's a violent dude who just wanted to give it to people, and not because it was cool or because it got the girls. He's just that type of dude. Didn't have much to say. He just wanted to show you.
You know, we had Joe Hill de Oliveira on, and even he said Marco just kind of was by himself. Like even his like teammates was just like, yeah, you know, why weren't you at the Hugo Duarte? Why wasn't Marco at the Hugo Duarte, Rickson fight? And it's, yeah, Marco walked alone. Like, he liked to fight groups of people alone. He didn't want to be in front of like a group on group type situation.
Yeah, I mean, I got so many Marco stories. I mean, and from what I heard he has a brother that's scarier and nuttier than him, if you can imagine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You know who's really good Marco Huas stories is Boss Root. Because Boss Root and I know went to Rio at least once, if not more, and spent time with Marco down there. And he told me some crazy stories. He told me a story where they went to some kind of party for some event at one of Marco's brother's house, and somebody like looked through the cupboards or through the shelves and found some alcohol that was like separate from what was supposed to be for the party. Started drinking it. Marco's brother came out with a gun shooting at people. That's what Boss said, and I don't think he was lying.
Man, he must have had some of that lights out bourbon, some really good stuff. Or something. I don't know, dude. That's all I can think of.
There's some product placement for you.
You talk about Marco being quiet. I'll tell you one more quick story. One of my first fights, Marco cornered me, and he did not say not one word the whole fight. Didn't say a word. Not a peep. Just looked at me. I remember and I won the fight, and I didn't have any trouble in the fight. I remember looking over at Marco in the fight. I was kind of like hoping he would say something, like some kind of encouragement or something. Literally not
You're
a
doing
word.
great.
I asked him afterwards, Marco, the fight went really good now, but like you didn't really have anything to say to me. And he said, I've been telling you what to do every day for a year. What do you want me to say?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, Marco. Okay.
His mind game is off the charts. I love him. Let me ask you, because he shows up rugged in California at that time, things are really early on, and there's always rumors and stuff. There's tough guys down there. Like, I remember there were rumors that Scott Basak used to call him out, the early Lions Den guy. Had he heard any of that, or how did he react to that type of stuff?
I think all that stuff is just, legends, or, I don't think a lot of that stuff happened. Like a lot of the Rickson stuff they used to talk to. Now, I've spent time one-on-one with Rickson more than once. And both him and Marco told me, like, there was never a thing where there was never a challenge. I mean, Marco fought Pinduka, but there was never a point where like Marco and Rickson spoke face to face. We're like, hey, let's fight. And that's like a legend you hear in MMA, right? That those are the two big guys in Brazil who are supposed to fight. But both of them told me that never happened.
Yeah, we've heard it too. We heard it from Pedro, but who knows?
What did Pedro say? I'm interested.
Pedro said that Rickson showed up at the gym and challenged everybody. Ruas stepped up, and that Rickson said, "No, not you. I want to fight them."
Really?
But who knows? Who knows?
I don't think Pedro's a liar, but I was never aware of that. I mean, I knew there was some stuff that had gone on, and I don't know. Have you guys seen the Marco and Pinduka fight?
Not
a long time ago.
Yeah, probably a long time ago.
That footage exists, and but I mean, I never knew there was a face-to-face, and both of them acted like it never happened. And I asked Rickson directly, actually, maybe 7-8 years ago. I was with Rickson one-on-one, and he told me nothing like that ever happened. Maybe.
Dude, it's just, you gotta remember, these guys, they've been punched a lot. They're combat sports guys. There's time, there's space. Who knows?
Hey, stories change too.
Chris.
I think he's talking about people like me.
Yeah. So
Where am I?
one of the
What's going
interesting
on?
things, one of the more interesting things about Erik is that he's somehow found a way to be either in or around pretty chaotic situations. One of like our favorites to talk about is March 16, 2002, the Ultimate Athlete Riot. Now you weren't on the card, but I believe you were cornering somebody.
Yeah, I was there with Joker and those guys. I didn't know Mike that long, and I had maybe only been training for like a year or two. That was right when I first started training. What year was it?
2002.
Yeah, I had probably been training for a year at the most. Just started training. It was at Casino Morongo, which is like an hour and 45 minutes from where I am. They had a tent just out in a field, like a big dirt parking lot or whatever, next to the casino. It wasn't in the casino. And this was back in the day. This is before MMA was sanctioned in California. So the only place you could have a fight is on an Indian casino. Otherwise, you had to go to Mexico or Las Vegas. So this is before there were shows all over. This was a big deal. It was a huge crowd. I remember the line was really, really long to get in. I went with Brian Deegan and the girl who I was dating with at the time. Brian Deegan is the creator of the Metal Militia. And it seemed like a normal show until a full-on riot started.
What was it like being in there?
I didn't feel super freaked out. I mean, a lot of us grow up.
You're 6'3" and 200
big.
pounds.
Yeah, I'm a big kid, but people were getting stabbed. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're 6 feet tall and you get stabbed. That ain't fun. But yeah, so that was the problem. And what sucks is the fighter, what's his name? Mike? What's the guy with all the tattoos?
Oh.
It was his friend. So he was friends with all the Mongols.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I had that information. I did write it down.
He was on the card with the fight. He's a heavyweight guy, a bunch of tattoos.
Yeah. I don't have it in front of me, but I do have it in my notes. Okay.
Miguel, can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
Just keep going with the story. I'll have it.
So basically it turned into like, it was, somebody threw beer or somebody got in somebody's way. They couldn't watch the fight. So all the Mongol guys came to watch this fighter fight. Somebody stood in front of me, couldn't see. He got upset, threw a beer. Someone turned around and said, "Fuck you," and threw a punch. And, now you're fighting a bunch of Mongols who are going to stab you, and they don't care. They're not afraid. And that's what basically went down.
So where were you at the time? You were cornering somebody, right? So were you just in the back or what?
No, I was in the regular seats when that went down. And I remember just, it's hard to see what's going on. I remember standing up in my chair, kind of almost like excited, like, yeah, what's happening now?
Yeah.
And of course, you don't really know the extent of what's happening.
Yeah.
But I knew right away it looked pretty serious. And I remember I grabbed the girl I was with and was like, all right, I'm going to take you over here because, I can take care of myself, but I can't necessarily control what happens to you if something really goes crazy. And it looked like it was getting relatively serious.
Did it filter around to where you were? Or, it had to be a lot of people cares or anything?
But it was a giant tent with only maybe one or two entrance and exits, and it took forever to get everyone out. And like the SWAT team came. It was like a big deal. Because remember, this before there were a bunch of fights. So you got somebody called the police and we're at a fight event, which back then I don't even know if MMA was a term. It was a fucking NHB event.
NHB, yeah.
A no holds barred event with a bunch of
Who knows how it was described? Who knows?
Been stabbed. So like 6,000 cops came, batons out, guns out, SWAT team gear. They were not playing games. Did you find out who it was, Miguel?
I'm getting a little slow internet. I'll have it in a minute.
Yeah, it's the main event. It's the last fight on that card. So after that, obviously you stick around. About a whole year later, April 13, 2003, you make your MMA debut at Gladiator Challenge 15 against Chris McMillan.
Yeah. So what had happened was, at this time, I was already really busy with like TV stuff. I was hosting X Games and a lot of different, action sports events on major networks, NBC, ABC, ESPN. I was doing really well with that stuff. I had met Terry Treblecock. He had come into our gym to maybe drop off tickets for somebody from our gym that was fighting. And I met him and told him, I would love to come commentate one of your fights, because at that point, for the most part, anybody commentating was like just somebody who had no idea how to commentate. They just
Yeah.
happened to be there, or they happened to be a fighter, so they got to commentate. I said, I would love to come commentate for you. Like, and at the time, Cherry was like, "Oh shit, you work for X Games?" Like, "Oh, fuck yeah, I would love to have you." So I had commentated before I had even fought. So
Wow.
I had done some shows in New Mexico at the Santa Ana Star Casino. I remember like Jimmy Ambrose fought and Javi Vasquez fought. So I was commentating for King of the Cage before I ever even had a fight. So I had maybe been fighting or training for like 8 months to a year before my first fight. And when I first started fighting, I don't know how it was for you, Chris, but I mean, it was just like, well, I'm training a lot because I like training. I mean, I enjoy it, but I'm training all the time. So I might as well compete if I'm going to do this, right? Just, I don't think many people like their first fight thought this is what I'm going to do. And to be honest, this is a story for another time. I never considered my career as a fighter. Fighting is just something else I did.
I want to bring
That's
that up
cool.
about you. You have so many different things. Like, what were you doing? You kind of said commentary, but I mean, and you were doing stuff for X Games. Like a lot of people, they're just fine. What is that? How you made a living? What did you do and fighting was just kind of a passion, something for fun. But what were you doing for like full-time work? Was that?
So I was doing like marketing and stuff like that, or I worked in action sports. I worked for Metal Militia. I helped create that brand. I was a brand manager. When I left that brand in say 2008 or 2009, they were doing $50 million a year. I oversaw the entire Rockstar energy drink, combat sports program. And remember, at the time, we were the title sponsor of Strikeforce. So I oversaw all of that, all the sponsorships. I was responsible for all the ring girls. So it was my idea to have Rockstar branded ring girls. Nobody else ever did that. We were the title sponsor, and I literally was like, how come you have your own ring girls? Like, why can't we use Rockstar models to be your ring girls? And
Metal
Scott
Militia
Coker
was
Scott Coker was like,
huge.
that's a great idea. We would love for you to do that. So that's what we did. I mean, I helped do a lot of that stuff. I was the first person to have branded water bottles for the fighters in the fight. The athletic commission would only let you have a clear bottle. I said, well, what if I make a clear bottle with a logo on it, a Rockstar logo? And they said, yeah, you're allowed to do that as long as we can see in the bottle. We see it's clear or whatever. So I was the first person to do that. Obviously, Monster does that now as well. I was the first person to ever, I don't know if I physically did it or I made fighters do it. I was the first person to ever have fighters bring a banner. I would make them bring the banner
Really?
in the ring after the fight. So if you won your fight, not only, you guys would hang the banner for the introduction, right? Well, I would tell their cornerman, if he fucking wins, you go stand behind him with his banner behind him during his fucking TV interview. And if you go back and look at all of those Strikeforce events, because I used to go to every single televised Strikeforce event for years, you would see me literally, for any guys that I sponsor with Rockstar and or Metal Militia, I would be, the moment they won, I'd be hanging over the cage, putting my hat on their head. When Verdum beat Fedor, I sponsored Verdum. I just had this weird feeling that, this is when Fedor was undefeated. And I sponsored Verdum with Rockstar. If you look at that fight, he has Rockstar in his shorts and he has a Rockstar hat on. People thought I was crazy. They're like, dude, he's not going to win this fight. I think, I got a weird feeling. So that was huge branding for those. And you can see in that fight, literally he has the hat on seconds after he taps out Fedor, because I literally had to run in there and put it on his head. I mean, I wasn't shy about that stuff. I would jump in the cage and say, put this on, dummy, I'm paying you.
Yeah. So, Erik, let's just talk about Chris McMillan. All right. So it's Gladiator Challenge 15. I don't want to say what I got, but there's some crazy stuff happening in regards to that fight.
What do you mean?
Dude, okay. First, you win by rear naked choke, right? Yeah. Herb Dean is the referee. Was there like a leak in the ceiling?
Well, there was. Are you thinking about King of the Cage Wet and Wild?
No, dude, it's Chris McMillan. No, it's 100% Chris McMillan.
No, the mat was dry.
Dude, these kids were like constantly cleaning it up. And then like when they ran out of the cage for you guys to start, they left a towel in the cage, like a white towel. And Herb saw it and just let it sit there. And it even got kicked at like once or twice during your fight.
You know what? You're right. It was raining. I remember that for sure, because I warmed up in a 10 by 10 white tent on concrete or asphalt. I don't think there was any mats or anything because it was raining. So I just did a little bit of boxing warm up. I think you might have been right, but I didn't experience or slip at all during the fight. It was a pretty short fight. I mean, for both of us, it was our first fight, so it wasn't, it's not like I beat someone who had a bunch of experience. He was an athletic, pretty strong guy, but it wasn't a tough fight for me. It was my first fight. It was just the experience of cutting weight and all that stuff. And that was the first, again, I didn't wrestle, so that was the first time in my life I cut weight.
How was that your first time you cut weight? Sucks, man. I mean, how was that?
Well, the stupid part is we cut weight and then drove up to the weigh-ins, like a 4 or 5 hour drive, which
oh man, so you had to sit there for 4 or 5 hours, feel like shit.
Sit in the car, yeah, that sucked. It wasn't that bad.
Mistake.
I mean, it's a little bit hard your first time. I think I tried to escape the sauna a couple times, and Babalu had to hold the door shut.
It's so brutal. Like you think, no, I'm really going to die, Babalu. You don't get it. Yeah.
It's funny how Chris will probably tell you that you, at every fight, cutting weight, like you get it down to a science. By my last fight, it was literally easy. It was so easy because I just,
and your body's used to it, and your mind's used to it. Yeah. I
even knew what brand of water to drink when I water loaded because it came out of me better. It's a brand called Penta water, Penta. It's expensive, but supposedly it's only in groups of 5 molecules. So it's for lack of a better term, it's thinner. So it absorbs into you much better. It also sweats out of you much better. So I would drink just Penta water, and that stuff would come out of me real easy.
I think the hardest part about that would be finding the water. I don't even know where you'd find it.
Yeah, it's expensive. You got to go to Mothers or whatever, or some kind of organic store.
So you also fought in the country of Mexico, where we've lost a few promoters in that country, and you fought Total Combat 2, which is obviously Eric Del Fiero's promotion. You fought
Great
Hector. Pardon me?
How much do you guys know about that show?
I know a little bit about it, but I lived in Mexico, so I also kind of understand what takes place in that country.
There was a world famous venue called Baby Rock. Did you ever hear about that?
Yeah,
like the strip club, right? Or disco?
No, it's just a regular club. Yeah. Now, this is a weird thing for people to understand, but
it's like cave walls or something.
So yes, it was one of 4 venues on Earth that had this specific sound system that was like literally $1 million sound system. So I'm guessing some cartel dudes must have owned this club to pay for this. But they had like a multi-million-dollar sound system, one of only a few in the world. And it was basically, imagine Thunderdome. It was like 5 levels. You had the ring down the middle, and there was literally 5 circles going higher and higher. So the crowd wasn't over there. They were like going up above you all the way up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I've gotten videotapes from the old days.
It was so cool. It was, at the time, it was kind of like, I was kind of not that into it because you have to drive down, walk across the border and then get a cab to the venue, blah, blah, blah. But looking back at it, man, dude, I fucking fought in Mexico at a badass club. Like looking back, it was really cool. Like nobody has those kind of memories. We warmed up in a VIP room on the top floor where the cartel guys probably got lap dances or sold drugs or whatever. It was interesting and cool.
So like Del Fiero, obviously fireman, Alliance, MMA, gym owner. How does he maneuver to get that venue?
Well, he's Mexican, number one. He speaks perfect Spanish, so that's a good head start. He had done a couple fights, I believe, on some casinos in the San Diego area, maybe once or twice as well. So, but he had a great thing going for a while at that venue. I mean, he sold a lot of tickets. He made some money, I guarantee it. The place was packed every single time. It was a blast. It really was. I mean, and they were one of the first promotions to have go-go dancers and club music between the fights. It was fucking cool. It was one of the first ones that had that kind of vibe, and it was cool as fuck. It was dope. And we had good fighters there. I mean, I eventually became the welterweight champion there, and then Dominic Cruz was the 55 or 45 pound champion. Kendal Grove was the weight class above me. He was the champion. Brandon Vera fought there, I believe, or maybe he was just there.
No, it's a who's who. Yeah,
man.
It's a who's who. Yeah, no, for sure. So you fought Hector Carrillo. You win by Kimura. Hector, it was kind of a step up for you because he was from Team No Limits. So you had Bao Quash and Juliano Prado, training this guy like or on the mat with him almost daily.
Yeah, he was a wrestler supposedly. And again, this is only my second fight, and I had been training, I don't know, maybe a year and a half at that point. It was maybe 6 months after my first fight. So again, I was still pretty much a beginner. He took me down a couple times, and then I was able to reverse him with a Kimura, and I think I dislocated his shoulder, dislocated his elbow on the Kimura. It went real deep, and he wouldn't tap. And it was exciting for me at the time. But I mean, again, he wasn't it's not like I beat a world champion or something to write home about. It was just experience for me at the time. And also back then, it didn't always work out with like opponents. Like sometimes you think you're fighting some dude and you go to the weigh-in, and this happened to me more than once in that show. And they're like, "Oh, he's not here. So you want to fight this dude?" And it's like, I trained and I made weight. So I guess very good. All right. Well, fuck, I'm going to fight somebody. So whatever. I mean, I ended up fighting another guy another time that was like 2 weight classes bigger than me. That's all there was.
You were also in attendance for the Diaz KJ Noons riot.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. And we know what's funny is I'm actually really close with KJ as well as the Diaz brothers. I mean, I'm probably one of Nick's highest paid. Well, actually KJ too. So I sponsored both of them. I mean, both Nick and Nate were wearing Metal Militia for a long time. If you remember all their Metal Militia signature shirts.
Oh yeah.
And I had KJ wearing both both Rockstar and Metal Militia. So when they fought, it was kind of awkward for me because I was friends with both sides. So I kind of stayed out of it. But I get along great with KJ. KJ lives close to me. He lives like 15 minutes away here in Orange County. He's a fireman, has a family now.
Good for him.
Wow. What was it like being in the middle of all that?
It was hard. It's hard for me to stay out of that stuff. It's awkward for me. Because I'm a very loyal type of guy where like somebody I care about or someone I have a friendship with gets engaged in that. I mean, it's really natural for me to jump into that. It's really hard for me not to. Really difficult for me not to. Which is like the same thing with Mayhem and Jake Shields. I mean, I literally, if you see the pictures of that incident, I'm strangling Jake Shields, stopping him from jumping in. Because remember, he was the middleweight champion of Strikeforce. Now yeah. I'm one of Jake's one of my best friends, but I run Rockstar. We're the title sponsor. So I'm in the ring, I'm in the cage, all that breaks out, and I'm thinking to myself, like, well, shit, if I jump in and stomp Mayhem on the head, I'm going to get fired, or, at least a good chewing out. And Jake is a champion, he's going to get, some kind of suspension, blah, blah.
Suspension.
So if you see the pictures, Jake just posted a picture today. I have him in a choke, and I have my back against a cage, and he's like yelling at me, "Let me fucking go." And I'm just telling him, like, "You're the champion. You're going to get in big trouble. I can't let you go."
I saw that recently.
He posted on Instagram the other day, and I said something. I said, like, "I just had to be the guy to ruin your fun," or something. I had to be the guy to ruin it for you. And he responded with something like, "And I always thought you were my fun friend," or something like that. I told him, the roles, "You really know how to hurt me."
Yeah, roles kind of got reversed there. Jake, what an interesting guy. I mean, incredibly well spoken. He came across as real vanilla, like in his fighting career, in regards to like he just never made the news. Was super cool, and man, there was behind closed doors. It was a lot different story. He's kind of a wild man.
Chris, have you ever trained with Jake?
Never trained with him. I had a grappling match with him in that Submission Underground 1, man. I remember Chael, son, I got a hold of me. He's like, "I got to fight for you. Like two weeks, no pay, Jake Shields grappling match." That's like, man, like, all right, how could you pass a chance to go against Jake Shields and grappling? I'll do it. And he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Sure." And it was fun. I mean, he was always one of the best guys in MMA as far as just pure grappling. So I was like, I got to try it, and it was fun. So
how'd that go?
I didn't even really understand the rules, but because I said, "Is it point system?" He's like, "No, it's EBI rules." I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that means." So I went there and like it went the distance, and then they're like, he started with my back, and then I got out, and I got his back, and he beat me on the time, but nobody ever submitted each other. So it was fun.
Whoever escaped the quickest from the back control.
Yeah, he did a good job right away. He would just get figure for my body and just sit there. I'm like, "Well, shit, man." I mean, he wasn't even trying to submit me. He knew the rules, and I was just like, "Whatever, man. I'll get out of this eventually." But it was fun, dude. I had a good time. And
Jake is, he doesn't look real short and stocky, but he's a strong dude that can control people. People don't
There's
understand.
good pressure, real good pressure.
Yeah, he's like next level. I mean, he's one of the best American grapplers as far as controlling people.
Oh yeah,
putting people where he wants you, for sure.
I knew that going in, but that's what it's like, man. That's why I wanted to go with him. I'm like, man, I like to go against the toughest guys, man. I don't want to go against an easy guy, so it's fun.
And people always made fun of his stand-up and had negative things to say about his stand-up. But I will say this, I was a guy who, I like fighting standing up. I trained with Marco originally and then Kings and all blah, blah, blah. I like kickboxing. But Jake is it's not that he's not good. He's just awkward. He doesn't do the normal things. And he actually has a decent jab, but he's not easy to hit. So when people watch him standing up, like, oh, I beat the shit out of that guy. But then when you get in there, it's like, just doesn't work and you're frustrated. I mean, these guys he beat Tyron Woodley. He beat good dudes and they could not hurt him on the feet. GSP, I don't think George St. Pierre even hurt him on the feet, did he?
Not at all. I mean, George didn't look good against him, man. Not at all.
Jake and George was a very competitive fight.
In 2005, he had a heroic run in ADCC. And the second day, like in the first, I think it was like the first match, popped his elbow. He had like a baseball coming off of his elbow, and he went into the day two, and he refused to pull out of his matches, even though he was clearly hurt.
Jake is, number one, a really tough guy, and number two, he is one of those dudes who just has this thing in his head where you don't think he's going to win these certain fights, and he just refuses to lose. He's one of those guys. He ain't losing. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to make it through. And he has so many of those fights that are relatively close fights that you don't think he's going to win, but he does. He does not accept failure. And I can tell you guys another thing. We talked about Marco's big brother. Jake has a big brother.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories are, Jake's told me his brother used to beat the shit out of him. His brother was tougher. And his brother lives in Santa Cruz area. And he's had like a weed growing operation for years and years and years. And obviously it just became legal in California recently, but he's always had this going on. And I guess, and this, you guys are going to laugh at me, I'm not joking. And I hope Jake doesn't care that I'm telling you this, but his brother has 2 wives or maybe more. And he's like famous throughout Santa Cruz. He's like the weed dealer with multiple wives, and everyone thinks he's hilarious. He's like some super alpha. He's like a super alpha motherfucker, apparently.
You can handle 2 headaches, not just one. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you look at that as a blessing. I look at it as a curse.
No.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
So Eric, you hung out in Mexico quite a bit, like in your fight career. Total Combat 6, Luiz, Torres. You quickly dispatched him as well. But
yeah, that was one of the fights where my opponent, I don't remember who was originally supposed to be, but my original opponent did not show up, and that guy just said he wanted to fight me, and I think it was my 3rd fight. Okay, I guess. When you're still in your 2nd, 3rd fight, it's like whatever. I guess I'm just experience and practice.
What about the Kendal Grove fight, which took place right after yours?
Who did Kendal fight that time?
I think they fell out of the ring.
Yeah, I do remember that happening. I don't remember who the opponent was.
Yeah, they both fell out of the ring, and they both got hurt.
The ring was relatively high. It wasn't low. It was like at least 5 feet high. It was a big deal.
Was this a ring or was it a cage?
It was a ring.
Okay.
Yeah. The both fighters got hurt. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's wild.
It was the Wild West, 100%.
Yeah. No rules, nothing. I mean, was he paying decent?
And people would get sewn up behind the bar, shit like that.
So what were the rules there? Was it MMA or was it NHB?
Headbutts?
I mean, was it headbutts?
No, it was regular MMA rules.
Okay.
We had all the same, I think, not Herb Dean wouldn't be there, but we had a lot of the same referees as you still see today in California.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, really fast to jump in the Ultimate Athlete show. I think when you said you were there with the Joker, it's Mike Guymon, obviously not Jess. And the tattooed guy in the main event is Rick Slayton. Right?
Rick Slayton, yes. Rick Slayton had a really tarnished image after that fight because he has got tattoos on his face and hung out with all these biker guys. Honestly, Rick Slayton is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's a sweetheart.
Everybody said that about him. Yeah. Everybody said that. They said it was just kind of a victim of circumstance. I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, I know a lot. I mean, I know a lot of like kind of like sketchy people, I guess is a good term, and a lot of people like that who you think are really scary guys, or they're sweethearts, nice people. They just come from a bad neighborhood where getting tattoos on your face is not, normal. But doesn't mean they're mean.
Yeah, rite of passage. Right.
I'm out.
Right. So, when you're fighting like how a King of the Cage, your first fight, King of the Cage, June 12, 2005, Mark Kempthorne.
Yeah, he was from Central California. It
was your first time going to the second round too, which is super important.
Yeah, it was exciting. I don't really feel like I had that much trouble, but I got to kind of, get my legs a little bit and, work out those lungs a little bit. It was a good fight. Herb Dean was a referee. I remember at one point, Herb Dean, I remember I had been commentating for King of the Cage as well. And sometimes when we would travel for the King of the Cage, Terry Treblecock would put Herb and we'd share a room. So I shared a room with Herb several times. I like Herb a lot. And I remember Herb telling me to get busy or something like that, or, you need to progress, you need to get busy. And I remember looking at him while we're fighting, I said, what does it look like I'm doing, Herb? And then I passed guard. And I asked him, is that good enough for you for now?
Hey, the guy you're fighting is probably hating this. He's like, this is some bullshit, man. This guy's talking to the ref while he's fighting.
Yeah, the guy came from a decent jiu-jitsu gym. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was in Central California, like Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo area. And I remember at the end of that fight, I finished him like knee on belly, punches to the face, and Herb tackled the shit out of me. And if you watch, there's a video of it on YouTube. He tackled the shit out of me. And I remember I looked at Herb, I said, Herb, all you have to do is say stop. Like, and the referee's down there, he's on his, his hands on his knees and kind of leaning in. And when kind of something you kind of do the show finish, Chris, where you're just going fast enough to make it look like it's enough to get the stoppage. So I did the kind of spaz out stoppage, and he just tackled the shit. I'm like, all the way to where I'm flat on my back, laid out. He's laying on top of me, and I was like, Herb, you just could have said stop it. I want to stop.
So Danny Wren comes. He's 4-1. He's out of Arizona Combat Sports. Obviously, the Lally brothers. From an esteemed camp. It's your first real hard fight, at least on paper. December 17, 2005, Total Combat in Tijuana.
Yeah. Danny Wren, I'll tell you an interesting story about him. He's in jail for murder.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was, this is a time, nowadays there's so many guys who are fighters because they're athletes and they like the sport. But 15 years ago, these are guys who were like fucked up dudes who like to hurt people, and that's what.
Different
side cash. Yeah,
it was a totally different thing. Now he was also a teammate or a close friend of Ray Elbe.
Oh,
and Ray Elbe back then, for some reason, he was kind of a big mouth and kind of a self promoter, and he was one of the first people to really be promoting himself online or talking to promoters, or really. He was very vocal, and he had been like reaching out, trying to get fights with me in different organizations. I wasn't signed exclusively to anybody, and he was trying to get fights with me, and I didn't know him personally. I never met him, and I was kind of mystified at this dude who wanted to fight me. And we'll talk about that fight later, I guess. But for some reason, it worked out that Danny Wren was going to fight me, and he had a decent record, and he was a decent athlete, and it wasn't like in Total Combat, it wasn't like nowadays where you go, okay, we have these 2 or 3 guys. Do you want to fight either of these 2 or 3? And then we'll ask them if they want. Back then it was just like, this is who I got. Would you like to fight him? It wasn't like I had a choice really. And like I said, half the time I'd show up to weigh-ins and that guy didn't show up anyways. So
but it was
I
normal.
remember that fight. Yeah. I kicked him in the elbow in the first round. Now, obviously coming from Marco Huas's gym, kicks were a big thing. I had a hole in my shin all the way to the bone.
Oh.
And I didn't know about it. I went back to my corner after the first round. This is 3 5-minute rounds. This is before we had 5 5-minute rounds. And Joker is cornering me, and he says, okay, no more kicks. And I looked at him like he was on drugs. What do you mean no more kicks? That's like my thing. I kick people in the legs. And he said, look at your leg. And I looked down, and I could just see a good quarter, almost the size of a quarter, and just bone. Now, it wasn't bleeding at all. So the doctor came over, and said, well, does it hurt? I said, no. He said, well, it's not bleeding. He said, it's not bleeding because there's really not enough tissue on your shin to really bleed a lot. He said, well, it's not bleeding, and if it doesn't hurt, you can keep fighting. So
Mexico.
Joker said, I know you don't want to hear this, but you're going to take him down. Just stay on the ground the rest of the fight. Because if you get kicked one more time or you throw a kick, that thing could get bigger and they'll stop the fight. So that's the only fight I ever had that went to a decision, and I hated it. I literally just took him down and finished the next 2 rounds, controlling him on top. And I had some decent ground and pound kind of, but I did not like it. I was not happy with it. It's the first time I ever went to a decision, and I actually got booed a little bit.
Oh, that's painful, man.
Because it wasn't an exciting, kill or be killed fight. It's the only time, and I hated it. I hated it.
So Mike Guymon, I've got to kind of like word this properly.
Hold on, grab a tissue. Go ahead, I'm listening.
So Mike Guymon's got a pretty large reputation.
Yep.
What was your?
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm not going to say the person's name, but they said Mike Guymon has been asked to leave gyms, but the gym owner is just like, well, I'm too scared to do that. I ain't no way. Like Guymon is like, he's got a reputation that's very large without any issues of just violence attached to it. Would you agree with that?
Not in any of my experience, and I was with Mike for a long time. Mike's a great guy. He's a great.
They said he's a phenomenal guy, but he's not somebody to mess with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to like threaten the guy or fuck with him. Yeah, he would shoot you. He's a kind of. I mean, he's armed. He has guns. He has guns in the car, guns in the house. But
I didn't want that.
Not the kind of, but like not like the kind of guy to be, unless you're doing something wrong, you have nothing to worry about. He's a great guy. I thought Mike helped me a lot. Mike helped me a whole lot. I mean, I brought a lot of people to his school as well, but Mike was always there for me. He helped me a lot. I got nothing but good things to say about Mike.
Yeah, they said he's their response was, the guy's got guns everywhere. You don't want to fuck with him. Like, you don't want to fuck with him at all.
I mean, he does security for like a lot of really wealthy dudes sometimes. When we were younger, like in our, long time ago, sometimes the places I would see him most often would be out at clubs, and he'd be like doing security for some dude, so he'd be at a table with some rich dude and a bunch of girls, and Mike just standing there behind him with his hands, just watching everything.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
How was your dealings with Ted Williams in Gladiator Challenge?
With Ted?
Yes.
Ted was okay to me. I mean, those are kind of the Wild West days of promotions. So, I fought for a belt there, and I didn't get the belt for like 6 months or a year. He convinced me to come back and fight for Gladiator Challenge after I was already kind of moving up and fighting for other shows. And he was like, why don't you come back and fight for me? And I said, no, I'm doing this other stuff. He goes, well, I'll make it a championship. It'd be like a super fight or whatever. And I said, well, if I get one of those belts, okay. And I remember I fought, and I was like, well, immediately, where's my fucking belt? That's all I came here for, to have a cool belt. Because that was before people had belts. There weren't really nice belts. So, when you've got your 6, 7, 8 fights, a belt's a cool thing to have.
Oh yeah.
So I was butthurt that I didn't get it for months.
Were you a pretty big ticket seller?
No, I mean, I would sell 50 tickets or so. I mean, but back then, I mean, you guys obviously you know who Nam Pham is.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Nam Pham and like Thomas Denny, those dudes were fucking making big money. Those guys were making 20 grand a fight back when people were making $200 a fight.
And he's selling it, huh?
Yeah. So what Terry would do with certain people, with ticket sellers, he'd split it with you.
50%.
So you sell $60 tickets, you get $30 yourself, but he wouldn't pay you anything to fight. So, like I said, Thomas Denny would sell 1,000 tickets or like 800 tickets. He all of his town would come. And again, this is before mixed martial arts or combat sports was a big thing. There weren't a lot of shows. King of the Cage was, the only consistent thing happening in Southern California. So Thomas Denny lived in the high desert. So he lived in like a Barstow area, or maybe not quite that far, but he lived up in the high desert. Like I said, he'd sell 700, 800 tickets, fucking make a gang of money. And he had an MMA school back then, which is I'm sure the only one in his area. And
He's like
You know,
Wildman MMA or something like that.
yeah, so he probably had a couple hundred students. I'm sure every one of them came and they would bring 1 or 2 people each. And that's 600 or 700 tickets right there. And you're making 20, 30 grand. And Nam Pham was, he would bring all of Westminster, which is all Vietnamese people, it's like close to where I live, but it's like the all Vietnamese area. And he would bring, same thing, 500 Vietnamese people come out to support him.
That's awesome.
It's
He would
the
make a
Eddie
big-
Alvarez system.
Yeah, I was told that Eddie, Rich Cho from Strike Force and Elite XC before that, he told me that for years when Eddie Alvarez was fighting for them, that his brother, I don't know his name, Eddie Alvarez's brother's name. I was told his brother's full-time job for a while was selling tickets to Eddie's fights, and they both made a good living off of it.
Wow.
I believe I booked him for a fight. I was walking down the boardwalk to the show. I like to walk alone just to see what's going on. And I bought a shirt off his brother, they were hustling the whole time. That's what Nam Pham and Thomas Denny in his neighborhood. That's what they were, hustlers. I mean, like
So
working.
guys like Eddie Alvarez or Nam Pham, they were taking a pay cut when they went to these bigger organizations.
Yeah. For real. Big one.
No, even Jeremy Stevens was too. Jeremy Stevens was a huge ticket seller in Iowa.
Yeah, and I'm sure like Joe Stevenson, same thing when he went from King of the Cage to UFC, took a pay cut. I mean, that's sort of the same thing that I experienced when, and a lot of people don't know this, I was supposed to be on The Ultimate Fighter.
Okay.
And I had a relationship, I believe it was a 3rd season or 4th season they did welterweights. Now, I had already done some television for Spike TV, for Kevin K and some of the people there. Kevin K was the president of Spike TV for a long time. He's a very big, well-known TV executive, still is. I actually helped introduce him to what turned out to be later on his wife. And I knew these people real well. I'd worked for them, hung out with them socially, blah, blah, blah. And then they get tied in with UFC. They start doing Ultimate Fighter, and then the people from Spike TV are like, why don't you want to do Ultimate Fighter? You'd be the best thing that ever happened to it. I said, well, maybe not. I might do it, but I'm just not, that doesn't sound that fun to me, to be honest. Now you got to remember, at this time, I was in my 20s. I was making 6 figures. I'm running a brand like Metal Militia, I'm working for Rockstar. I'm fighting on the side, which is not that much money, but I'm hosting TV shows, getting paid $3, $4, $5 grand, a weekend to host these bigger shows. Some of them, I'm doing great. I don't have a 9 to 5. I could literally not get out of bed for a month, and I'd make 10 grand that month, no matter what. I'm in my 20s. I'm having a good time. I'm partying like crazy. I have a whole bunch of friends. I hang out in Hollywood a lot with all kinds of, actors, celebrities, people like that, whatever, big name athletes. I'm having the time of my life. And then they're like, well, we want you to Ultimate Fighter. And I was like, so you want me to go live in Vegas with no phone, no internet, I can't talk to anyone, with a bunch of other fucking maniac fighters, fight like every week maybe, make weight all the time. And I only get $500 a week. I was like, I'm making like 2-3 grand a week, not doing it. What, you want me to do what? And then on top of it, now again, and this may or may not have been the right decision, but I'm already doing all kinds of TV stuff. I'm like relatively well known in that, at least in the action sports world. I was very well known. I was like the guy with freestyle motocross announcing. I was 19 years old hosting Wide World of Sports. And this UFC contract literally says you have to give us your image and likeness for free forever. So, like I said, it may or may not have been the right decision, but I kind of stood my ground. I was like, I'm not giving anyone my image and likeness for eternity. They could suck a dick for $500 a week. Like, so I'm going to not make any money for a couple months and give away my image and likeness. Like, I'm on TV all the time. Like, I don't need them to I don't need to be like made famous. People already know who I am. So then it came down to, they told me, and I don't know, I think they believed it too. They told me, we're going to get you a different contract.
Ooh.
And you're not going to, your image and likeness will be temporary or whatever. They told me they were going to give me this different stuff. And I believe that they thought they could, but it never panned out. Now, in the meantime, they convinced me to go through all the steps to be on the show. So I flew to Vegas, did the interviews and that kind of stuff. I hit pads in front of Brian Diamond and some of these people, and I submitted a couple of guys. They had this roll with a couple different random guys. And I tapped them all out, and I was on. There was no question. They were like, "You're the guy. Like, this whole season's gonna be about you." So, okay,
Nice.
cool. Let me know when I get my contract, because I'm not signing this one. And it never came. And it came down to like literally like they had like, I didn't get on the plane and go from Orange County to Vegas. And I had like producers like at the airport, "Where are you?" "I'm not coming. I didn't get the contract I was promised." And it like went up the chain at the Zuffa office. More and more well-known people were calling me. And it got to Dana. Dana was not happy. And Dana will never forgive me for it. He was fucking livid. And like to this day, Dana sees me, fucking gives me a dirty look.
Wow.
But that's Dana.
Well, who do you think they put in your place?
I have no idea.
That's what's
I have no
always
idea.
interesting. Is we're trying. Eventually, we're going to run into the people that were like, "Oh yeah, dude," like the day before, and it's because somebody like yourself,
Dropped out.
didn't pan out.
No, they usually probably worked the pool. If they were taking 16, they probably ran 22 guys through the mill.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Just to have a backup on a backup. Remember, guys got pulled off. Fitch got pulled off the airplane, and there wasn't anybody waiting on a fighter. There was another guy there. So whatever.
had a few
I'm just
alternates.
guessing, but
They probably had a few alternates at a hotel, like ready to go, I would guess.
what it is I think what pisses Dana off is, first of all, you're getting very few no's, right? So now here's a guy capable of telling you, "Nah, it's not worth, it's not really worth my time," and that could
And he's
have a
right.
ripple. Right, but that truth can't get out for Dana. Not for Dana to be like, "Look, you're gonna fight for $500, give us your rights, for perpetuity, and you're gonna gamble. You might get one fight on the show, be out, and go home."
If you guys also remember the big prize for the winner of the Ultimate Fighter was $100,000 UFC contract. But do you guys know the details of that?
It's
Wasn't
like 7
good.
fights. Yeah, it's like
It was
7 fights.
$100,000 if you win 9 fights in a row. So
Yeah, it's not
I think
good.
your first fight would have been like 5-5. And I was already making like 4-4 in like Elite XC or whatever it was I was fighting at the time. I remember I was like, I'm already making that. So you want me to go spend 8 weeks, make $500 a week, be fucking miserable for 2 months. Maybe I win, maybe I don't. And if I fucking win, my grand prizes, I make basically the same as I'm making now. Cool.
No, a guy like you could probably take 2 months off maybe and get your business back. But there is a risk that you might lose, real business.
Honestly, the biggest thing is it fucking sounded miserable. Honestly, the number one thing was it sounded miserable. I just was like, that sounds fucking terrible. I'm gonna be locked in a house with a bunch of dudes for 2 months, not talk to anybody. Fuck that.
He
Well,
grew up
Eric,
on a beach.
I think we can also agree that sometimes there was some creative editing involved.
Yeah,
where
they might make me
people-
look like a piece of shit.
You know what I
And you'll
mean?
never live that down.
No.
And remember, I have a TV background. More than anyone, I understand they can make me look like whatever they feel like making me look like.
Yeah, they don't like you.
Yep.
There's plenty of time in the day, and you'd watch one episode, and that might be a 4-day period. They can edit, think everything you say in 4 days. They can really edit it and make it look like however they want.
100%.
Yeah, it's not easy. So you mentioned winning a Total Combat title that happened September 9, 2006, where you met finally Ray Elbe. Ray Elbe had been calling you out. There seemed to be some bad blood. What was the start of that?
So Ray Elbe was also a real the well-known figure like on the underground forum and also back to the Share Dog forum was a pretty big deal. And obviously you guys know, but a lot of fans today don't understand. There wasn't many websites 15 years ago, 20 years ago to get mixed martial arts news. So the forums were the number one places. And I tell people, I tell my fiance, I tell my friends, said, you won't believe there was no sport in the world where you had more of the best people actually on the fan forum you did with MMA. If you told people hey, Tom Brady and Antonio Brown are on the NFL forum online, they'd be like, shut the fuck up. But back then, all the fighters were actually on the forum because that's where we knew what was going on. So Ray Elbe was real prominent on there, well known, and he had publicly called me out. And then I fought and I beat his teammate, and I had never even met the guy. And he somehow got my email, and he was emailing me, threatening me, telling me I'm going to tear you apart, and he kept telling me he's going to break my arm. Now remember, at this time, I think this is my 8th or 9th fight.
LB had a good armbar though.
Well, he had a very good armbar. He armbarred. I mean, he probably armbarred. He had like 20 wins before he was like 20-10 when we fought. And this is my 8th or 9th fight. So this is a big step up as far as experience, as far as skills.
For
He
sure.
armbarred a lot of people. I mean, I was concerned about getting armbarred. I trained to not get armbarred. And I remember like kind of tripping out about it, but I remember like I wasn't afraid. I just told him like, you've really gone out of your way to get this fight. And he felt like I was a guy who, and rightfully so, I didn't fight the greatest, best guys my first couple fights. So he thought I was just all show and no go and just some guy that people heard about or thought was cool, but that I'd be an easy win to help build his name. And I remember telling him like, careful what you wish for, because you're going to get it. And Ray Elbe was the only fight that I like actually wanted to hurt. Like I thought like, I want to fucking hurt this dude. I'm going to hurt this guy. And I trained really, really hard. And I mean, I had really good, people helped me train. I had, Mike Guymon. And I also would go to Eric Paulson's gym a lot. So I trained with Josh Barnett and all the people there. And Josh and I became really close friends. Babalu helped me a lot with the fight. So I trained with a lot of high level people. I was always surrounded by the best people. And I remember at weigh-ins, I got in his face. And I remember he looked at me and he was like, you don't have to be so mad. Like, we're going to fight tomorrow. And I was like, it ain't going to be a fight. You're going to get it. And if you watch the fight, it's on YouTube. I broke his leg in the first round. I broke his leg with kicks. And I'm not trying to, be bombastic or, exaggerate, but I really embarrassed him. I beat the shit out of him. I broke my hands and my fingers on his head constantly. I broke every bone in my hand on his face. I broke his leg. It was a shellacking of shellackings. You can watch the fight. It's bad.
It's pretty one-sided. Yeah,
It's very
surprisingly one-sided. I think the referee should have stepped in a little sooner and stopped it.
Yeah, Herb Dean could have. It was one-sided, but styles make fights. Ray is a really good jiu-jitsu guy, but he wasn't like a great wrestler. So if I don't feel like fighting on the ground, I'm strong enough and have decent enough wrestling, your jiu-jitsu means nothing. We went to the ground one time. We went to the ground one time for a second. I don't know why, but I instinctively took him down. He was up against the fence. And within seconds, he was in position for an armbar. He had the armbar. I just was too strong for it. But he had it locked up immediately in the first round, within seconds. And I just, squeezed, got my other arm in there, gave him a couple hammer fists to the forehead, and he let go. And after that, I never went to the ground again. And I just completely embarrassed him standing up. And it was because of what I did to him. He moved to Thailand afterward. He was so embarrassed with his stand-up that he was like, I'm going to go learn how to stand up because this was no fun. And he lived in Thailand for years.
Let me ask you a question, test your memory a little bit. What was it he said exactly that got under your skin that was like, all right, I'm going to hurt this guy? Like,
Well,
do you remember?
This was Total Combat, but this was not in Mexico. Now we are sanctioned by the state of
San
California.
Diego.
Yes. This is at the San Diego Sports Arena. It was like a real arena. It was like a big, who knows, probably
There's a
6,000,
shitload of people there.
8,000 people there.
Yeah.
Dana White came to the show. It was the first show in Southern California that was sanctioned. Now, we weren't the first in the whole state. Strikeforce, Cesar Gracie, and Frank Shamrock was the first fight in California that was sanctioned, but that was up in San Jose. And we were like only a couple weeks after that. So we were the second fight that was sanctioned in all California, first one in Southern California. It was a big show. We had a lot of media, so believe it or not. I mean, for a relatively small show, we had a lot of newspaper articles. We were on the news, all kinds of regular websites, not MMA websites. We were doing interviews for. We had a lot of media, and he was just talking so much shit, talking about he's going to break my arm, this and that. And like I said, he emailed me personally, like got all my email, threatened me and stuff. And I was like, I don't even know you. And I literally was like I said, you careful what you wish for. You're going to get it, dude. And he did. And I enjoyed it. I could have finished that fight earlier. And I dragged it out. I wanted to fucking embarrass him. I mean, there's some, I don't know if you've seen, but there's some some shots where he would drop to his butt and I would hold his legs up and I was kicking his thighs and you could hear it like through the whole stadium. It would echo. You can hear it echo through the stadium and the commentators were like, oh my God, those are the worst kicks I ever seen. But they were bad. They were real bad.
They were
I mean, I
nasty.
broke his tibia and his fibia. He had a cast and he didn't walk for 8 weeks.
Oh,
So, hey, tough dude.
Chris,
Tough
watch the
dude.
fight on YouTube. Watch the first round and you'll see. And it's also, I'm going to make this claim right here too. I'm also the first guy to ever kick someone square in the butt in a fight. I kicked him in the butt, like not his leg, the butt. Like he kind of fell. I dropped him once and he fell and he kind of rolled back and his legs came up in the air and his butt lifted. And I ran up and just straight kicked him in the tailbone once. And then I also, I mean, I'm sure someone's done it before, but I never seen anyone done it. I also picked him up so I could beat him up more. I dropped him, stopped hitting him, and I reached my hand out and I said, come on. And I picked him up and he took my hand. I pulled him up and I started punching him. And as far as I know, I'm the first person to do that. I'm sure someone else has done it though.
What was it like dealing with Armando Garcia at this point, who was the California Athletic Commissioner?
They were okay. I mean, you could tell they had growing pains trying to figure stuff out. But I mean, so it's not like fighting in Vegas. I mean, Chris knows in Nevada, it's like nobody gives a fuck. You do whatever you want. It's very lax. All those old school athletic commission guys are just whatever. But these guys were much more serious, and they were trying to figure it out. But I didn't have any big problems. I remember they yelled at me about putting emergency in water. Said you can't put anything in your water. And I also got yelled at for peeing by myself one time. They wanted someone to go with me to pee. Because I love that Kevin Randleman story. You guys know that one, right?
Which one?
Go ahead.
You know that the athletic commission guys go to the bathroom with you because of Kevin Randleman.
Mm-mm.
He submitted pee from a dead person once.
Yeah, cadaver.
Dude, it was like, yeah, cadaver piss.
Look at
Yeah.
Chris. Kevin
How do you
Randleman
do
was.
that?
Kevin
Didn't
Randleman was
they
so
know
cool.
when it's like 20 degrees? Like, yeah, it's supposed to be body temperature. I piss cold. I don't know.
Yeah, so he must have had one of those fake things in his pants, squeezed out some
Was it
cadaver
better?
pee. First of all, where the fuck do you get cadaver pee?
There's ways. There's
Here's
ways you
that
wouldn't know
line.
about. There's ways.
Yeah, but
At a university too.
well, listen, I'm gonna tell you this right now. On the list of places, if I had to get pee that wasn't my own, if I had to find a list of places, a cadaver would be way towards the bottom.
Bro, don't you have a friend? Don't you have one friend who doesn't do drugs? I got lots of friends. I could get some piss from. Get a woman. I don't care. Just don't get a dead person. That's messed up.
I'm going to interject myself here, and I'm going to say this may or may not involve that same team, but I'm sober. I have not had a sip of alcohol since I was 18, but me asking these people, like, you don't know anybody that can pass a piss test?
I guess all those dudes were jacked up. Oh,
It was a resounding no. I go,
Listen,
I mean,
I'm
it was a
not
resounding
judging anyone.
no.
It is what it is.
And it involved FedEx. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Well,
So
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not judging anybody for taking steroids. Listen, I've had a lot of injuries, a lot of very serious injuries. Chris saw I almost had, you can see my hand is a big lump. I almost had my hand amputated. I had 5 surgeries on my wrist. They literally
Jesus.
wanted to amputate my hand at one point. This is before I ever trained or fought. I was like 22 years old. So I had doctors tell me, like, you're never going to use that hand. Like, if you open the car door or carry a jug of milk, that's the most use you're going to get out of that hand. That was before I ever started training. So I had a lot of really serious injuries. And, a lot of times the doctors were like, hey, to help you recover, I'm going to give you steroids and growth hormone or something like that. And, I broke my neck when I did the movie Warrior. I broke my C6 and I experienced a little bit of paralysis for a short period of time. And ever since then, I have a doctor who gives me testosterone propionate for like 6 weeks a year, once a year. I mean, that stuff, for injuries, it's fine. So some guys are taking that stuff. I'm not going to judge them. I mean, I took it for my injuries. I'm not taking it to get jacked, but it is what it is.
That's another thing you're talking about, different movies. What are the movies have you been in, and how did that come about? Just knowing the right people or what?
Well, so the Warrior thing, obviously you guys have all seen Warrior.
Yeah.
So the Warrior thing, I didn't audition or read for it or anything. I got a call from a lady named Lisa Elze, who you can look up. She's one of the VPs at Lionsgate Films at the time. Lionsgate's a giant movie studio.
Yeah, legit.
So I literally got just out of the blue. This lady calls me up. Is this Erik? Yeah. Hi, my name's Lisa Elze. I work for Lionsgate. I'm a VP here. We're
So
shooting.
you're thinking, this is a paternity test. No,
Like,
this is not Eric.
She said, I got your name and number from some guys at UFC and WEC from Reed Harris. We're filming in a movie in Pittsburgh with Nick Nolte and Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. We need a fighter to star in it, but we need someone who could speak. And she literally said this: "It's a short fucking list. There's not many fighters who can talk." So she said,
She's right.
"You're the
She's right.
talk. So do you want the job or not?" And I was like, "Wait, what? What?"
Who, me?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, it was so out of the blue. It was so funny. And, you know, literally within like, I don't know, very quickly, 2 months later, I was in Pittsburgh and I lived there for I was there for over a year back and forth.
That's
And
good.
I lived with Tom Hardy for a period. And before we started filming, they paid me to help train him and train with him to help sell him as an athlete. Because Tom
How was
Hardy,
he?
so Tom Hardy, who I like very much, is a great guy. He is not a masculine dude whatsoever. Let's just put it that way. Very, very. He's an actor. You know, he grew up doing. He had theater class in high school. Let's put it that way.
He's a thespian.
Yes. Like he wanted, and he was very vocal about it. Like he did not enjoy it. He was afraid. He didn't like even pretending to spar. He was not into it. So we had to work with him every day for a while to sell him.
Wow.
And the reason that they needed me so much in the movie is they needed a fighter who could speak, because all of our fight scenes were shot from behind him because it was his stunt double. So all of our fight scenes are shot from behind him, and you see my face and hearing me talk. So they needed me to be able to fight and talk. That's why I got the gig. So he wasn't athletic at all. I mean, I like Tom a lot. I'm not trying to be a dick. He's not an athletic
fighter.
He's not into it. Joel Edgerton, the other guy in the movie, he was relatively athletic and he learned pretty quick, and he caught on pretty fast. And I'll also say, hanging out with Nick Nolte, cool as fuck. Cool. As cool as you think it was that cool. Nick Nolte's the fucking man. He's the man.
So let me rewind just a little bit. That Ray Elbe fight, you had War Machine on the same card.
Yep.
And I know he was looking to fight you as well.
He always wanted to fight me, and Eric Del Fiero was managing him and wouldn't let him. He told him, Apple will beat you. And he didn't want to ruin War Machine's record. I was down to, it was funny. War Machine, I mean, obviously everyone knows about War Machine, and he has this reputation as this and that. War Machine, my interactions with him, he was always a good dude. He wasn't a spaz. He wasn't violent. He wasn't crazy. He and I got along fine. Now, part of that, I'm sure, is because there's a mutual respect. We're both fighters. He's not like I'm afraid of him or he's afraid of me.
Yeah.
But he was always a cool dude. He was always a cool dude. Now, would he be the guy to fuck with or piss off or talk shit to? No, he'd probably snap on you. But my interactions with him was just fine. He was always cool. But Eric Del Fiero always told him, because he would every time I would fight, he would come in the ring afterwards. I want to fight you. I go, okay, let's fight. And Eric Del Fiero was like, no, I'm not letting him fight you. And he told him, I don't think he's ready for you. I think you'll beat him up.
So you had Justin Levins and Mike Guymon in your corner. What was your relationship like with Justin Levins?
I mean, Justin and I were really, really close. Justin and I were really, really close. And I know you guys talked to Chris about that. There's a lot, where I grew up or where I'm from, there's a lot of kids, hard to explain, but a huge percentage of kids I grew up with took their own lives. Like, if I told you how many close friends I grew up with that took their own lives, you wouldn't believe me. You'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are all these kids from a rich, wealthy neighborhood killing themselves? Just, I grew up with kind of fucked up, crazy kids. I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, I know Chris told you about, there was all
Chris Brennan. You're referring to as Chris Brennan.
So Justin and I mean, we were like, he was my main training partner every day for years. That was like my guy. He was my guy every day. We were pretty close. We would hang out, outside of the gym as well all the time. We'd go out together, go to the club and that kind of stuff, hang out with girls, that kind of stuff. And then he started getting into the bad drugs. I have two classifications of drugs. I have fun drugs and bad drugs.
Yeah.
I have a rule, if you could do that drug at the party, then it's not that bad. If you have to go in the bathroom and hide, probably shouldn't be doing it.
Excellent point.
he started seeing this girl, well, the girl that he was with when they died, Sarah, and she was into opiates, and he wasn't before. He would do like a little bit of coke or like do an ecstasy pill at the club and have fun. She did opiates, which is, like I said, this is like the bad drugs.
That's a ball game that you're
deal.
not going to leave that stadium.
Yeah, so he started. They got into that together, and I haven't talked about this in a long time. I don't really know. Would you guys know much details about that? You know what happened, or you understand any of that?
I just know he passed. Yeah.
Well, so it was a double thing. He killed her and himself. But it was hard to, I don't know. I mean, I can't be 100% sure about this, but it was understood that it was a agreed upon thing with both of them. They were both in such a dark place. They both wanted to do that.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so there was no like,
well, it brings out the worst in people, opiates.
Oh, heroin. Yeah. Opiates, bad deal. There was like no struggle. It wasn't like they were to fight and then he did that to her. They were both like sitting in bed together, like sitting up in bed. So what I was told, or what, because Ian McCall and those guys found them. They went there. Yeah. And a couple of us had called each other because they were like in a dark place and kind of getting worse and worse. So I don't want to say I expected this, but I wasn't shocked. This is a long time coming. They were in a bad place, and they were stealing from other people to pay for more drugs and this kind of shit. It was getting worse and worse, as it usually is with this type of situation. And we got to a point where like people were calling each other. Have you talked to Justin? No. Well, I talked to these people. They didn't talk to Justin. Nobody's talked to Justin for how many days? Shit. Okay, well, who's gonna go over there?
It was just kind of
over there, and walked in the house, and it had been a couple days.
That's brutal.
It was a brutal. It looked good and it didn't smell good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you brought up a little bit about Chris Brennan there, you buzz or whatever, but we talked to him. He was talking about like incident a long time ago. I talked to you about a little bit.
Yeah.
You didn't really know each other back well. Can you not really confirm? Can you correct that story a little bit?
So,
or tell your side.
I'm probably like at 18. I was probably 18, 19 years old, maybe almost 20. I didn't have any kind of combat sports experience, but I'm a big kid. I'm 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. I'm athletic. I'm not afraid of anything. And that was like our beach. That was like our place. And Chris and them lived a little bit inland, not far, but a little bit inland. And I don't know if you guys grew up at the beach, but like there's like a locals thing. And if you don't live in that town, you're a kook. You're like coming to our beach, you're a kook. So it was already like kind of standoffish with those guys. Like those guys are from inland. Fuck those guys. So I remember like we were like kind of harassing them, fucking with them, but we did that with everybody. Like literally we would like mess with girls, hit on girls, throw stuff at dudes we didn't know or didn't like. It was just like, we're kids, we're teenagers.
Yeah.
And
kids do. Yeah.
What's that?
That's what kids do.
Well, Chris is a little bit older than me. Chris is like 5 years older than me, I think. So I remember there was some kind of incident, some kind of face-to-face kind of shit talking. And again, I had no experience. I didn't know what I was doing, but I wasn't afraid. Kind of talk shit. And I think I kind of nothing really happened. And fortunately for me, nothing happened. And then I think something came down later on, like really brought a crew of guys and wanted to get back at like my kind of crew of guys. Now I wasn't there. So I don't know what Chris was talking about. Like we had got arrested and Jeremy got arrested. Thank God I wasn't there because like I said, I would have been beat up bad. I didn't know how to fight properly. I mean, again, I'm an athletic, strong kid, but I didn't know how to box properly or defend a takedown. No way. I would have got the shit kicked out of me. So thank you very much, God, for making sure I didn't show up at the beach that day.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I remember another time I had seen them driving, and this is like before cell phones even. And I remember like Chris pulled up next to me, and we were like kind of talking shit, and we pulled over. I pulled over, like, come again, I'm not afraid. And I remember Chris was screaming at me or threatening me and wanted to fight. And I like thought better of that idea and talked my way out of it. And I think I later on, and I even went and trained with Chris at his gym, Next Generation, a time or two. And that was like my first introduction to it. And then at that point, that's when I made my, like, okay, well, all my friends are training at Marco's gym, and they're kind of like not getting along with these guys. So I'm going to start going to That's when I went to Marco's gym and kind of learned how to fight to begin with.
What was Chris's reputation locally?
Chris and I get along great.
Yeah,
Chris
he
and I
said
talk
that.
all the time. I like Chris.
He
Yeah.
said that.
Well,
Yeah.
He had a reputation for street fights, bar fights.
Yeah. He wasn't. He was out to prove something back then. I mean, he's only 5'8". Of course, he's got something to prove. He had that kind of little man's complex. And this kind of time, he was trying to establish his gym, and him and those guys, they were not to be trifled with. They got in fights around town, 100%.
Did you ever experience like Joe San or Kimo socially?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So
please.
this
This is for me. Sorry.
I'm friends with Kimo. We still talk. Kimo's a very interesting guy. Well, we'll start with Joe San. So Joe Moreira was somehow tied in with and friends with Marco Ruas when I was first training there. They've been friends, and they would help each other train or get ready for fights, or they would help train each other's fighters. So Joe Moreira would always like help Marco's guys. And then there was, for a long time, I was going to Joe's gym in Costa Mesa, and Kimo was there every night. So I would train with Kimo all the time. Now, Joe Moreira fought Joe San in like an illegal underground fight in LA.
Huh.
And Joe San did the Speedo thing. And if I remember correctly, he like gave up like within like 2 minutes, like just tapped out like to nothing, just tapped. Just didn't want to fight. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. It was nonsense.
He gave it a good minute, didn't like it, got out.
General
It's like trying food.
Joe San was on, those guys were smoking speed and that kind of shit. So I'm sure their cardio lasted about 8 seconds before they're fucking having a heart attack. So there's that experience. And then Kimo has this reputation. I don't know how much you guys know about him, but he's from where I'm from. So he has kind of a bad
wait.
like
He joined MMA to spread the word of Jesus Christ. And he also liked to travel spreading the word 6 months out of the year, took donations to do so. That's what we know about Kimo.
So Kimo, he kind of has, honestly, Kimo's one of those people that I describe. He's a really good dude who makes bad decisions. He's a sweetheart. He's a really nice guy, honestly. Nice guy, cool guy. I get along great with him. I don't have anything bad to say about him. He just makes bad decisions. He's the kind of guy that would, win a fight, get his $50,000 check, and he'd go party, like 10 days straight, and the money be gone. Like one of those guys. But
sounds like a lot of fun to me. I like him.
Yeah. It's fun to hang out with. He was a great guy. Just made bad decisions. And he had some challenges with drug abuse on and off in his life as well that affected his fighting. But I trained with him all the time at Joe Moreira's, and had a good time with him. He didn't have I'm trying to think of the nice way to say this. He had a really good career. If you looked at his like work ethic, like he didn't like training. He didn't like working. He didn't like that shit.
Really?
I don't think he enjoyed sparring, or some people like training. Like, I like hitting people. I like getting hit. I don't think he was into it. He did it because that's how I made some money. I don't think he enjoyed it. So like before his fight, so Joe Moreira was always his main coach, but then before his fights, he'd come to Marco's gym to spar with us, and he did not like it. You could tell he wasn't into it. He didn't enjoy it very much.
Well, he wasn't there often enough. Yeah.
Like, Babalu, Shimu, me, Marco, and Kimo didn't like it. But like I said, I think he was more doing it for the money because that's what he thought he needed to do. He's a sweetheart. He actually dated a porn chick that I dated after I did. It was funny. We'd always joke about it and stuff. I went through a stage where I dated nothing but porn girls for several years.
Here in the Midwest.
That's what I remember, Mike. Hey, it's funny. Chris mentioned that you had 100 different careers. In our prep to this, I mixed you up with Aaron Brink. I was like, hey, I think he had a stint doing, you know what I mean? No. You just dated a bunch of them. That's cool.
Let's just look at the stats. I was like in my 20s. I'm hosting X Games and all kinds of TV shows. I'm running Rockstar marketing program, Metal Militia marketing program, which are two of the coolest brands. and I'm a professional fighter. You know,
That goes hand in hand with porn stars. You're right.
I'm not an ugly guy. You know, I don't have to be super cool or super beautiful to be like, if you just add those things up, girls were going to like me. And I was going out in Hollywood, and some of that. So, I mean, I was around a lot of like celebrities and girls like that, stuff, and people like that. Just how it worked out. I didn't like try.
It's a rough life, brother. It's a rough life you've lived.
He grew up brutal, didn't he, this guy?
My fiance's upstairs right now, probably sharpening a knife.
Yeah, right.
I bet she doesn't look bad, though.
So
I mean that as a compliment, not at all.
We're 29 weeks pregnant right now.
I really? Congrats, brother.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a son. Yeah,
That's
Chris has
cool.
met my fiance. She's a sweetheart.
Oh yeah, good girl. I like
She's
it.
she's as good as it gets for me. She's beautiful.
do you have any other kids?
No, this is my first.
Dude,
I know.
Congrats.
awesome experience. That's for sure. So September 26, 2008, Show XC, you fight Matt Makowski from
Yep.
Datus Fight Team. Now, Matt, he's got wins over Joe Schilling and Nick Serra. Obviously a very tough dude.
Yeah, he's from Philly. He was a Muay Thai fighter. Like I said, he beat Joe Schilling. He beat. Did you ever see that fight where he beat Nick Serra? Nick Serra refused to. It was similar to my fight with Ray Elbe. Nick Serra refused to get up after getting kicked in the leg so many times.
Butt scooting. Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was one of those like Eddie Alvarez Elite XC shows on the East Coast, I believe. And Matt was like a serious opponent. That was like, okay, this guy's serious. He beat up. I mean, Joe Schilling. The guy who beat Joe Schilling is not a joke, right?
For real.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
now for that fight, I had been training at CSW a lot, and Babalu was helping me a lot, and I had a great strength and conditioning coach, a guy named Brandon Beauvais, who coaches one of the bigger European hockey teams as far as strength and conditioning. I had a great strength and conditioning program. I've been real fortunate for a guy who, I was never the greatest, most talented or toughest fighter on earth, but I was always surrounded. I mean, I had the right conditions to be the best. I just didn't make it. I had the great people around me. And I remember I was in such good shape for that fight. I remember specifically in that fight, I remember halfway through the second round, hearing my opponent, who's a real good opponent, I remember hearing him breathe real hard, gassing. And I was beating up on him, and I consciously thought to myself, I feel great.
Yeah.
And that's a good feeling when this guy's not digging it, and I can keep going like this all day. And that was a good fight. That was Elite XC. That was at a casino called Chumash Casino, and that was on Showtime. That was a live Showtime fight. So I was happy to fight there. It was a cool casino. It's like close to Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, where Chuck's from. Like 3 hours from me, and that was a great experience. I love fighting for those guys.
Eric, you real quick, Mike, he's talking about a lot like, hey, I had this conditions. I might not be the greatest or fastest, but I just didn't make it. I'm like, you know what, though? Most fighters have one thing, fighting's it. You had about 10 different things going on. You never, in my opinion,
Other gears.
You never said I got to put everything into this one basket, and that's what you have to do to make it, in my opinion. So you didn't. I wouldn't say you didn't make it. You just had other options. Most fighters have zero other options. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the truth.
It's complacency, like I didn't need to fight, so
exactly.
I got better, but it wasn't like a thing where I was never, not even close to like saying, hey, I dedicated my life to this. Not even close.
Fighting is not usually a first resort. It's usually, I don't want to say it's a last resort, but it's just like it's not. If you have a lot of options, it's not usually it's like the path less chosen or something like. You know what I mean? It's not what you planned out to do usually.
Well, even think about it financially. I mean, when I was fighting on Showtime and Strikeforce or WEC, I mean, with my sponsors and everything, I did much better than 90% of guys. And I'd make like 20, 25 grand a fight. But like, compared to my life, like that's not very much money. So it's like, even like, it was like one of those things like best case scenario, I'm not going to make that much more money, or I'm not going to be doing any better than I am now. So I'm just going to keep doing this because it's cool and I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've mentioned Josh Barnett and CSW a couple times. What was it like training with Josh?
Josh is another one of those guys like Babalu that like would beat the shit out of you more because he liked you. And I mean, Eric Paulson's a fucking walking encyclopedia of combat sports knowledge. I mean, the guy
He's brilliant.
he'd get in a position and show you 46 ways to submit a guy from that same position. You'd be like, Eric, slow down. Like, can you just focus on 3 of those and not 87? Can't remember all those, dude. And they were great. I mean, they were super cool with me. It was great to be in that room. I was there back with like Babalu would be there a lot. Hector Lombard, Josh Barnett, John Wayne Parr would show up. What was the Samoan dude who fought in K1?
Not Ray Cepho. Was it Ray Cepho?
No, there was one from here, one from Southern California.
Mighty Mo?
Yes, Mighty Mo.
Okay. So,
it was
were
a
you
fun
at
time to be there?
Were you at the famed Josh Barnett, Hector Lombard incident?
Yeah, I was there for that. I was there for
What
that.
happened? Please
Mike,
tell us.
go.
Hector just had like a one speed. He'd go hard on everybody. That's just how he was. It wasn't, you know, some people might say like, oh, he's a dick. Well, it's like, he's not trying to be a dick. That's just, he goes hard. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. So, I mean, the way that kind of Paulson and Babalu and Josh looked at it, it was like, they viewed it that he was bullying people. Now, I'm kind of used to being like guys going hard, so it wasn't a big, you know, Hector was going hard with me, and it was rough. But I didn't like cry about it, you know. But it was rough. And again, he was bigger than me, had a lot more experience than me, obviously. But I didn't cry about it. But they see the way that he had gone hard with other people, and they wanted to teach him a lesson. They said, and they went hard on him. They went hard on him. Both Babalu and Josh did.
How did Hector react to that?
I don't think he ever came back.
Yeah, Hector in our interview with him was claiming that Josh was making the students clean his car and do his laundry, and Josh was a bully, and he had to stand up for the other students.
I don't really agree with that necessarily. I mean, Josh is an interesting guy. Now, remember, Josh is as much a pro wrestler as he is an MMA fighter. So in that world, you do have to sort of like, there's a pecking order, and you do need to sort of kiss ass and like know your place. And I don't remember Josh ever making him wash his car, do his laundry, but I could see, I mean, Josh would fuck with us. I mean, Josh would beat the shit out of me because we got along. I mean, I remember, I'll give you one story. I remember I was getting ready for one fight, and I would do rounds with Josh, who, you know, I'm cutting to 170, he's walking out at 280. So that's fun to begin with. But, you know, 12 years ago, that was normal. That wasn't weird. Yeah. You spar with a heavyweight, you know, a guy who's borderline super heavyweight, you're a welterweight, no problem. And I remember one time Josh had me down in side mount. He's on top of me in side mount, and obviously I'm not going to bridge or get him off of me. And I was frustrated, and I fucking hammer fisted him in the head for the bottom. And Josh looked at me. Did you just fucking hammer fist me from the bottom? He couldn't believe it. I said,
I would deny
can't do anything else. And that was a big mistake, because he fucking just started throwing big knees from side mount, and I was making sounds like a girl, like, oh, he's kneeing me in the body so hard I was screaming for my life. And he thought it was hilarious.
Man, you know, you talk about, you know, that his mentality, pro wrestling, that's also a big Japanese influence, because there's all about hierarchy over there. So I'm sure if he's been in that realm a lot, that's just a different way of looking at things too. So pro wrestling and that Japanese influence is totally different.
Yeah, sumo as well. I mean, the young, I forget what they're called.
Young boys.
The beginning sumo wrestlers, they have to wipe the old guys' asses. Literally, they feed them, they do their dishes, and they wipe their ass.
I'm out.
That's hard. That's a lot to ask.
In sumo, Chris.
Yeah, I don't think I'd make it.
So I think one of the fights where Eric, I would say, if I had to pick one fight I'm most proud of you in regards to watching it, I got to go November 20th, 2009, Strikeforce Challengers Cup. You go to Kansas City, where you fight Glory MMA's Bobby Volker.
How much do you know about Bobby Volker?
Bobby Volker's a bad motherfucker, man.
I've seen him fight a few times, yeah.
So, you know, and that, you know, it's so cliche, and I hate saying it, but it's true. You learn so much more when you lose than when you win.
Oh yeah.
Now, looking back, I could have easily beaten Bobby Volker if I knew what was, you know, how to fight it. And, you know, they say a fight, you know, one of the best quotes is, a fight is a fight and anything can happen. So in that fight, if you watch it, I put him down. The first punch I hit him, I fucking put him
Dude,
down on
you
his face.
had him. You had him.
So, Chris, I don't know if we talked about this, but you've seen people get knocked out and then they get knocked in. I hit him again and woke him up.
Dude, well, Eric, hold up. Chris, it's a 3-piece special. It's a 3-piece special right off the bat. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I go, wait, let me read this result again. And he woke back up on Eric's, like, Eric punching him.
So I hit him and put him. I mean, he was out face down, like landing on his face. Didn't put his hands up, like landing on his face. And then I go to hit him again. And he fucking pops up or woke up. Now, I immediately, instinctively go to like, I'm gonna go for the kill. I start flurrying this guy on the ground who I didn't realize at the time has fucking rocks in his head, as we saw in his later on fights with guys like Robbie Lawler. I mean, he took that guy takes a beating and does not care.
Dude,
he did it in Strikeforce and UFC. So I didn't know him well enough to the point to know that I had to fight a guy like that. I thought I could finish him. Both Babalu and Josh Barnett cornered me for that fight. Just also a little side note, Josh Barnett wore coach's socks up to his knees and short shorts and had a whistle around his neck. He thought it was hilarious. So anyways, and I think Babalu was like partied all night the night before the fight. Like we were just we were living our best lives, having a good time. Anyways, I dropped him. And Pat Miletich was commentating. He said, Eric should have just stood there. They would have stopped the fight if he didn't hit him again. Yeah. Anyways, I hit him again, wake him up. I flurry like crazy. He rolls around, kind of defending himself, rolls to the fence, slowly gets up, protecting himself against the fence. And I throw 100 punches by now. And he just finally gets back to the fence and looks at me. And I go, oh, fuck, I'm tired. Yeah. I literally just sprinted. And I got Babalu and Josh Barnett, world champions. Fucking finish him! Finish it! Screaming their heads off. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. And just keep going. And after like 60, 90 seconds, I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm tired. Yeah. And I was in great shape. And, but a lot of cardio was in your head. I emotionally blew my wad. I fucking blew it. And I took down a couple of times in that round, and I dominated the first round. But after I was done, I went back out the second round, like, oh, fuck, I got nothing. Yeah. And if you watch that fight, I landed a lot of shots and just, slowed him down, but he just kept walking forward. And when I go down to that fight, I swung and missed and then just went down because I was so tired. He hit me, and then I threw a punch back and missed, and I went down. And then he kind of flurried on me, and I was covering up. The referee was fight. And I remember the referee said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fucking fine. Get off me so I can breathe. That's all that matters. I'm not hurt. I just can't breathe."
Man, there's nothing worse than being in a fight when, there's nothing you can do. When your body's not reacting, you're just dead tired. The worst thing in the world is being tired in a fight. If you're in that exhaustion, if you've never been there, you'll never understand it. And everybody who has, they're like, I never want that to happen again. That's the only thing you care about is never let that happen again.
It was emotional tired. I wasn't, I was in great shape physically, but I blew my wad and I thought it was an adrenaline dump.
Adrenaline dump, exactly. Once you have that adrenaline dump, it's over, man. There's nothing you can do to fix it. You're just done. Body's not reaction.
It's like squeezing on a rear naked choke for like 3-4 minutes and then expecting to use your arms again.
It doesn't happen. You can't do anything anymore. I've had it happen a couple of times. I hate it.
Now, if I had to fight him again, and if I knew like, hey, this dude's the kind of guy that you can't put him away, I could have just fought a 15-minute fight and won every round, no problem, easily. I mean, I was more skilled. I was way more skilled than him. He's just a tough motherfucker, and I didn't. He didn't fight in any big shows before that, so I didn't really understand that about him. Yeah, and he just
nobody did.
Hung in there until I ran out, and he fucking put it on me.
Well, there's also some intangibles here. Well, the first one is he's fighting in his hometown. Yep. So he's not dealing with travel. And it's not like hometown, 1-hour flight for you. You got layovers and shit like that to go from California to Kansas City.
A weird thing about me is I never lost a fight that I drove to. Only times I ever lost, I flew, were the only fights I ever flew to. I never lost a fight I drove to. I always felt great. And every fight I ever lost, I had flown to. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I think I think flying to the other side of the country and sleeping in a hotel, it just changes shit up for you.
Yeah, it was an absolute war. I will, to kind of encapsulate just how tough Bobby Volker was. In his post-fight speech, he had blood coming out of his ear because he clearly had a burst eardrum from that opening exchange.
I hit him hard.
Yeah.
Hit him hard. You saw his fight with like Robbie Lawler and Patrick Cote. And then he also had a couple like championship fights, I think, in Strikeforce after he fought me. He fought that one blonde, real stocky dude. They fought 2 or 3 times in Strikeforce, another welterweight dude from the Midwest. And they went back and forth a couple times. I think they fought 3 times even. It was brutal. They beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, Volker is Homer Simpson. Like he's absolutely Homer Simpson. You had talked about, we started this interview with your commentating King of the Cage. Erik, I will tell you, like, I mean, obviously I research every person exhaustively that comes in here, and your commentary with Eddie Bravo, both of you guys work very well together at that time. I mean, you guys have gotten much better since then, but the commentary that you guys were doing was absolutely cutting edge. Like the information that I need, the nuggets I need for these interviews, dude, I can't tell you how many times you bailed me out, bro.
So one thing with when I was first commentating, and I have a couple different feelings on this subject. Number one, before I commentated fighting, I was doing I was on ESPN already. So I had to, I mean, I wasn't winging it. Like you had to do it properly. Like there's rules, there's a set guidelines of how you do television, like as a professional, as also when you're on camera. So I had learned those rules and I had followed them, and nobody in MMA knew that shit. They didn't know how to properly do a stand-up or do an interview. There's all kinds of stuff you're supposed to do that these guys, they weren't professional at it. And I thought, I was like, well, fuck, I got this experience, I could do it. And I did. But as I started commentating more and more, and I got too comfortable with it, and I didn't take it serious. And part of that is because I was commentating so many King of the Cage shows, and the fights were fucking terrible. I mean, I don't want to be too negative about Terry.
Wait, hold up, Erik. I'm sorry, I got to interject. When King of the Cage completely just rented their name out to anybody, they had a guy named Mike Camp here, like, handle their Midwest relationships.
Yeah, I remember that.
Anybody with like a working brain or a retina that had 50-50 vision would have understood. This is like, it's like going to a trailer park and having this guy's going to manage my huge, business. It's like,
yeah, I mean, so like there would be guys who, you sell 100 tickets, cool, we'll give you a fucking handicapped person to beat the shit out of for your friends.
Yeah.
And, I regret it now, the way I acted, but I wouldn't make fun of the guys who were getting beat up. I was like laughing at the situation, like this is just a fucking joke, and I didn't take it serious, and it was a bad look for the show probably, as well as myself. And it was.
I haven't seen those fights yet. I haven't seen it.
What was Chris's name? That was their matchmaker, and he did the commentating with me for a while.
Chris Cordero, and he and I would just laugh and joke about shit because it wasn't that serious. And these dudes were not good fighters, and like I said, I was already making a lot of money. I didn't need the job. I didn't care. And I regret it now. I wish I was more professional and more serious, because those guys deserve to be taken more serious. And I was just, like I said, it was a bad situation. I regret it now.
We've talked about this before where, I mean, King of the Cage is such an interesting thing because at one point they were the second biggest name in the country. I mean, UFC and King of the Cage, it was like, how did they drop the ball? Like Strikeforce should never, or shouldn't have ever been there. Bellator should never exist. Like they had the name. They just, I don't know what happened.
It was all about, because Terry didn't have a TV deal to make money off of. He was just about ticket sellers. And then it came down to like, what?
He had pay-per-view.
How many of those did he sold? 200?
Yeah, that's true.
I hosted them. I don't think he sold very many of those.
Yeah, but he had DVD space with like Suncoast and some of the other like big distributors at the time.
Yeah, I don't think those.
Let's say wasn't working, Mike. I don't know.
I'm a Midwest guy. What the fuck?
He was about selling tickets, and he
They
was like,
still
I said,
buy DVDs there.
If you could sell tickets, right. If you sell enough tickets, I'll give you. You could fight whoever you want and get an easy win. And people were doing it all day. And he would add like, you know, a lot of heavyweights who were like just so obese
Dan
and like
Severn.
terrible and like, dude, it was hard to take it serious. And Chris knows because he commentated with me. I try to be professional and try to be serious now. I want to make up for it, sort of.
Oh, Eric's very good at. I mean, I was super impressed with his ability to do this, man. So, if anybody needs anybody, great.
Yeah, Eric, I'm going to be real direct with you. Like, I don't watch a ton of King of the Cage, but every time I've encountered it, I need gym names, mention some corners. Like, you do a couple of those things for me. It's just like, thank you. You know, it saves me 15, 20 minutes of research. And you do it right.
I mean, I would immediately, you know, my job is I would be, I'm the straight host. I cover who, what, where, why. I just tell you the facts. I'm responsible for, you know, bringing us, introing us, outshowing us, throwing us to a break, all that kind of stuff. I'm responsible for all the things that need to be done, and whoever's with me gets to have fun. I don't.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, no, that's true. All right. Well, we talked about, and we're wrapping up soon. I know we've had a ton of your time right now. The BMX world. I'd like to ask you to kind of give some of your feelings or sentiments about some people that you had worked with in the past. Steven Murray is one of them.
Yeah, Steven was a really, really good friend. So when I was like 18, 19 years old, because I was getting paid to surf and all that stuff, and I was working in the surf industry, and X Games came to San Diego. And it was when X Games was a new thing. And I went down there and I had a credential. I got a credential from one of my friends who was working for Oakley. And I got to hang out and I watched the BMX dirt. And I thought that was the coolest fucking thing in the world. It was so cool. These guys, you know, doing the BMX jumps and flips and the 3-4 jumps in a row, and they'd be judged. And I literally was like, that's what I'm going to do next. I went to a bike shop, bought a BMX bike, and a place called Sheep Hills, which is about, 4 miles from where I live now. Sheep Hills was like the best place in the world for BMX dirt jumpers. Like literally, it just happened to be where I live. You know, a lot of the best athletes are all here in Southern California. So I literally like stopped surfing, stopped going to the water, and I, for several years, just drove. I did this every single day. I rode BMX every single day, and got to a point where I was, good enough to, get paid to do I was a professional because I got paid a couple times to do demos and that kind of stuff. I didn't win any contests, but I was hanging out with the biggest and best guys in the sport at the time. Guys later on became really, really big stars. And then I was already announcing X Games for freestyle motocross. And then they started having me get more involved with BMX as well. And Steven Murray was the first guy to do a double backflip on a bike. Nowadays, it's not a big deal at all. But 15 years ago, I was like, holy fuck, you did what? And me and him and another guy named Corey Nastasio, who has a big podcast and all that stuff now, we all trained and we learned double backflips together. And we trained, there was the very first foam pit in Southern California. We went to a foam pit and we were all doing double backflips into a foam pit and then to what's called a resi mat. So it's like a landing, but it's made out of resin. And it's very soft and it gives. So if you eat shit, it's not as bad. And I was one of the first people who could do a double flip into a foam pit and a resi mat.
Damn. I mean,
So
how many
Steven
times
Murray.
did the bike land on you just suck? I mean, that had to happen a lot.
Well, this is a BMX bike, so it's not as bad as a motorcycle. A motorcycle
Good
lands on
point.
you, it's a lot worse. But Steven Murray later on, he broke his neck and paralyzed himself in a gravity games event. He did this in an event in front of everyone, and it was fucking gruesome. It looked bad. It looked real bad. And he was, at the time, he was the best BMX dirt jumper in the world. He was making, $200-300 grand a year. He had a lot of good stuff going for himself. And at the time, he was the guy in BMX and one of the biggest X Games stars. And he took himself out like that. And he's been full, he's paralyzed from the neck down. He has a little bit of movement in his fingers and that kind of stuff now, but he's had a challenging life, that guy. He's real tough. He's hung in there, really, really well. He has a book out.
It's brutal.
What about Chris Ackerman?
Chris Ackerman, we talked about before. I've had a lot of friends who took their own lives growing up in South Orange County. A lot of crazy. It was kind of one of those things. Like, I grew up around a lot of crazy kids, people who, kids who did freestyle motocross and all these crazy sports. Well, you got to be kind of a fucked up person to not be afraid you got something wrong in your head. And, you know, you could say that about fighting. You know, nowadays people are athletes, but, you know, 20 years ago, people who fought were a little different. Like, you do what? Kind of one of those things. It wasn't cool. I remember when I was first fighting, people like, it wasn't that cool. People were like, why do you do that? Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh my God, that's awesome. That came later. But Chris Ackerman, we were doing a trip. We both worked for Blue Torch magazine. It's a big media group, an action sports media group. We were on a trip with all the best freestyle motocross riders in the world. And we were in the dunes here in Southern California. And at a certain time of day, the way the sun is on the dunes, you cannot see where one begins and one ends. You kind of it's like all kind of flat. You know, we see the color. So
Well, according to Eddie Bravo, it's permanently flat, but go ahead.
So he rode off of a dune and went a couple 100 feet.
Oh,
Like, we were hauling ass across a desert. And from where we looked, it looked like it just kept going, but it was the end of a dune into like a big valley. And everyone else stopped in time and he did not. So Chris Ackerman broke his neck. And we were not close to anything. We were a ways away from anything. Somebody had a satellite phone, thank God. I think it must have been a satellite phone because there's no cell service out there. Another one of our friends had to give him a tracheotomy right there. Just put a hole in his throat. I don't know if you've ever seen that in real life, but
Oh, man.
that'll open your eyes. That's a big deal. You know, he's not breathing. Well, fuck. We've got to try something. Let's give him a tracheotomy, see how that works. And we were so far in the middle of nowhere that I don't know how it worked out this way, but a Marine helicopter came and got him and took him to Loma Linda Hospital, which is the Inland Empire. And he was in critical condition, ICU for a long, long time. And he was paralyzed as well. He was one of my best friends growing up. And he actually just passed away last year as well. But I mean, he'd been in a wheelchair for 15, almost 20 years. And that just doesn't, you know, he'd been in a wheelchair or a bed. He never moved. So body's just not meant to do that. I had a lot of guys that I grew up with, especially from the freestyle motocross world, that died in front of me. Jeremy Lusk was a really close friend of mine. He was another X Games gold medalist, one of the best in the world at freestyle motocross. He died in front of me in Costa Rica. They had a freestyle motocross show down there. That's where you are, Miguel?
Yeah.
San
They had a
Jose.
show down there in San Jose, a freestyle motocross event. He crashed and broke his neck and was, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he died right immediately.
Oh, wow.
They took him to the hospital, got his lung, you know, it's one of those things that got, you know, same with like Shane Del Rosario. You know, he was done, but they got his lungs and his heart going again. But he was basically brain dead, no brain action.
Wow.
So I spent 3 days with him, with his wife, and then Cameron Steele, who's a mentor of mine, who's a race car driver, and he's an action sports guy. And Brian Deegan, who's a creator of Metal Militia. We flew down, as soon as we heard about this crash, we were on a plane within hours because we didn't know what was going on, but we were told it was real bad. We were told it's not good. So we flew down with his wife, trying to sort it out. We're in San Jose, and, you know, I speak perfect Spanish, but I didn't know anybody in San Jose. I didn't know if this was, it's hard. It was like, is our friend in the right hospital? Is this a good hospital? I mean, I don't know. I'm not from there. So you're trying to suss out the situation all while talking to these doctors, telling you this, telling you that. And then it was a big deal at the time. There was paparazzi outside the hospital. They followed us back and forth from the hotel to the hospital. I have another friend, this guy named Zach, I work with at Bet Online. And you know who that Bet Online is, Chris. Zach, he told me that he remembered me from that, like 12 years ago, seeing us on the news and stuff.
really?
Yeah, he's like, I remember that. And
So,
so we were trying to figure out, like, okay, do we pay for a mobile IU and fly him home? Do we transfer him to another city here in Central America with a better hospital? And all the while, like, nothing's getting any better with our friend. This is like one of my best friends, and he looked bad. Didn't look good. Like, you know, physically stand there and look at him. It was like, oh, this doesn't look very good. And we did that for 3 days, trying to figure out what to do with him, how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, sitting there with his wife, being told by the doctors that your husband's not going to survive, ma'am. It was a rough situation. And then this is one of the most gruesome scenes I could ever describe to you guys. It's so surreal. Jeremy, his temperature was going up constantly and his blood pressure was going down, and the pressure was growing in his brain. He had intracranial pressure, and they had to drill a hole in his skull to let the pressure out. And he was basically, like I said, he was gone, I think, at the moment he crashed. His parents did not have passports. They never left the country. They didn't need them. So they had to get special permission to come to Costa Rica. It took him 3 days. And I'll tell you guys this, they came into the hospital. They walked in the ICU, and the moment they walked through the doors, he let go. Like, he waited. It was crazy.
That's unreal.
Dinner. It was crazy. And he literally, he waited till his parents walked through those doors. Chris, you can say hi to Ariel, to the pregnant one. Where are you
Hey there, how you doing? Where we at? Good to
There
see
she
you
is.
again.
So Jeremy, it was crazy. This guy was on death's door for 3 days, brain dead, but his lungs and heart working. And literally the moment his parents walked in the door, he let go. And the staff of the hospital, again, there's paparazzi everywhere. There's like an international athlete. They put on a show for us that I didn't think was necessary. They did CPR for 45 minutes, taking turns, doing compressions on his chest and breathing for him, which was like, why?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have ever, had the unfortunate, experience of seeing anybody lose their young child, 25-year-old guy. But watching his parents go through this was one of the most surreal, hardest things I had ever experienced in my life. You see these people, snot, drool, tears, screaming at God, yelling all kinds of terrible, weird shit, and then threatening the staff, don't stop, don't give up. I mean, he was gone, and they wanted to keep going. And then his dad was a really, really stout motherfucker, real thick guy. And his dad was like he was a hard man. He was not a man to mess with. I mean, obviously Jeremy you ride freestyle motocross, you're tough. His dad started threatening and attacking the people who worked at the hospital, the doctors. And then I'm a fighter. So now everyone's looking at me, go get him, go control him. And I'm like, oh my. So then I have to tackle his dad, who I knew, and trying to restrain him from breaking equipment and attacking doctors in the ICU. Yeah. It was one of the gnarlier, heavier experiences. I mean, I've seen this a lot in my life. I've been around it. I was around it with Ackerman. I was around it with Jeremy Lusk, Shane Del Rosario, who I know you guys know about. I was in the hospital with him when he died. Another guy who's a part of the Metal Militia, another freestyle motocross rider. His name is Ox. I was with him when he died as well. He punctured his lung and just couldn't get any oxygen, and we're standing there holding him, and he just fucking kept breathing, but it wasn't working. So I've seen this a lot in my life. For someone my age, it's kind of fucked up, but it's happened a lot.
Yeah, there's nothing more disturbing than watch two parents bury their own child. It's like the exact opposite of what's supposed to take place. It's a hard thing to watch. All right, so you got dinner coming up. Why don't we close with a couple?
Well, Mike, Erik Apple's in the books. Another one, couple hours long. I told you he could talk.
Well, he's a really interesting guy. And on top of that, like you had mentioned off air, well, as many lessons he learned from Marco Ruas, PR was not one of them, because Ruas doesn't do PR, and Erik is actually very good at it. So no, it was a fun interview. It was a good interview. We got 2 hours out of him. We learned a little about the California scene, what it's like, operations wise in regards to sponsorship, him tying in Rockstar Energy. I remember that. I mean, that was a huge deal. Like, that was one of the first big companies that came on board, and for him to kind of link those things is pretty special.
Yep, that's it. The interview's in the books, and we'll be back next week with 2 more. Thanks, guys. Erik Apple.
Yep. Well, like, share, subscribe. Please like, share, subscribe. April 8th, I'm at Bourbon Street on the south side of Chicago for Ignite FC. I'm in Orlando, Florida, April 16th. And then the following weekend, Ignite FC is in Minnesota. I am back there. I'm hosting all of those events. If you guys like to gamble, you can also go to betdsi.eu. Use the promo code LIGHTSOUT, spelled any way you want, and you will get 50% cash deposit up to $1,000. You throw $1,000 in, you end up with $1,500. So we appreciate everybody's support. We're not growing without your help. The YouTube algorithms are like, they'll let like 100 people see it, and then people in our own, like people that subscribe to us, they get blocked from it unless they specifically seek it out. So we really need everybody's help. If you could like, share, subscribe, it might get us a $15 check one day from YouTube.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.